Squishy, wake up.
Yes.
We got a pod to
I'm here.
record.
What? I've been here the whole time. What do you mean?
Dude, aren't there these like raid hotfixes that we got to talk about?
Oh shit, yeah, there is.
So,
I like how we had one job last week just to do okay, Squishy isn't here, let's pay attention to Wowhead, and then we just miss it.
Dude,
there was
I did this.
Apparently, raid hotfixes like posted while we were recording the podcast last week, and we just completely missed them.
Dude, I wrote this post while taxiing on the plane. Like I was about to take off.
No, you gotta tell us.
God
dang it.
Because right after I hit send, I'm pretty sure I took off and had to put my phone on airplane mode. But you know. So raid hotfixes.
We had a week to play these. Were these? I mean, I think the biggest ones were obviously to Muggsy, right? The AOE damage on Muggsy just straight across the board reduced by 12%.
Yeah. So these were basically tuned around healers, which I think is really interesting because this is the first time in like a while where they're like, we're gonna nerf a healer spec and we're gonna compensate the raid for it. Just because of how overpowered Oracle Disc Priest was, right, Grell?
Yeah, well, it's the same with Prez last season too, right? Prez was very, very strong, and they had to like globally. I mean, all the bosses were way too hard last year too, but they did have to like globally reduce the damage on the last 4 bosses when they nerfed Prez.
But yeah, so some of these are a little weird. I mean, the 6 bunk junker nerfs, they're fine. Less damage, less passive damage. Sprocket, just a nice change for people, progging that boss. The What Are Bandit change just doesn't matter, and I don't know why they did that one at all, because that's never killing you. And I honestly think What Are Bandit needs more nerfs with, like, the fire just one-shotting your raid still. How is your prog on What Are Bandit going, girl?
Oh, we did kill it. We're on a Muggsy. We have,
nice.
I think, like 3. Basically, this whole week we just extended and we've been on Muggsy. I don't know. The thing about One Arm Bandit is like, to me, besides like figuring out all your cooldowns, it's a dodge fight. Like, if you weren't getting owned by the tornadoes, like there wouldn't really be that much difficulty in the fight. I feel like it would be way, way too easy. Like the whole fight is basically dodge the tornadoes, dodge the coins. Like it's just dodge the fight basically. So I don't know. I have a hard time figuring out how to nerf it. I don't think it's that bad, especially considering the last boss isn't super tough. I don't mind One Arm Bandit in the current difficulty that it's in.
I actually think one of the best things to do is just to remove the slow on the absorb. That thing kills people.
There's a slow on the heal absorb.
Yeah.
There's a lot of like random slows that kill you, and you're like, huh? I mean, usually you have like big healing CDs for every absorb, so it goes off quick. But yeah, it can like take you off guard and then just kill you instantly if it like sticks on you and you're not ready for it. And you have to like run out with the tornadoes.
Yeah. The Muggsy changes are really nice though. I will say, like, doing it this week, it was really, really chill. The one thing I will note though is they still have yet to nerf any of the mine shenanigans because they're not nerfing the mine healer absorb. And if that ever still stacks, you die for the most part. So you still need a Disc Priest or a Preservoker. That's a requirement for the fight. Plus you need Paladins for popping the mines because that's still a thing. And I'm going to go get on my podium again and say the mine desync still exists. And please God, Blizzard, fix that bug.
Yeah, we encountered that for the first time. The mine stack thing is really weird. Like basically for people who don't know, it puts a bunch of mines on the ground. You have to pop them one by one. It puts a debuff on your raid. It's a heal absorb. You have to heal it off. And it stacks if you don't heal it off. But like, I don't know. I feel like a lot of healer cooldowns are just like globally healing the raid for the same amount. And every once in a while, there'll be like 1 to 3 players that don't get it healed off and they start stacking up that debuff. And as soon as it starts getting stacked off, stacked up, it's just dead because you just take so much damage from it. And it feels like really, really random. Like you just have to like preemptively press buttons on it, even though you like don't really need it. But yeah, I mean the global damage nerfs will definitely help a lot. We were getting heal checked a little bit, and I feel like it's gotten better this week.
For sure.
Okay, so Growl, we have a dramatic reenactment below of Jangbi's encounter in a 12 Cinder Brumetery. Do you mind explaining to the class what has happened with you in the Cinder Brumetery? Because I've seen that Jangbi, he's getting a lot of IO injected recently.
Yeah, there's been highs and lows. I've been, TGP is going on. There's been a lot of people missing, so I've been spending time in Dornagol and on my alts. Been playing a lot of mage. Shout out to my good buddy Dazer and all my other friends who carry me in keys. Let's just say that Jangbi's confidence got a little bit high, and we were up late last night, and I managed to queue into a key with a buddy who I've like pugged with a couple times. It was a pure pug, and we actually timed a 16 floodgate with my mage, just in a pure pug.
Damn.
And we're like, yeah, Jangbi's like, all right, we're getting a little confident. So what do we do? We start going back in LFG to start getting some IO for some keys. And we load up into a 13 Cinder Brew. And yeah, so basically the dungeon starts and the tank allegedly claims that I'm pulling mobs into like that my orbs are pulling more stuff into the pack. I mean, I don't know. I'm just mashing my buttons. Like maybe it pulls, maybe it didn't. So then we go to the, I don't know, like I feel like we're doing okay, but it's like, we're having deaths here and there. Eventually we like wipe maybe like 2/3 into the key. The tanks has some comments for me along the way about how I'm pulling too many mobs and mages, blah, blah, blah. And then eventually we like deplete the key. And the tank just goes something along the lines of like, you're a boosted trash mage, and I just get kicked from the group. Jangbi's pretty sad. So I'm sitting there and outside, of course my chat is having a riot about it, right? They think it's so funny. And then the guy who was tanking comes in my chat, right? Because you know what the chatters do. They immediately DM him, you know who that is, right? That's Growl, blah, 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 blah. I'm sure they did that, right? So then like a couple minutes later, the tank shows up in my chat and he says, quote, as the person tanking that run, you literally did every single thing a troll DPS does. Of course, I called you boosted. You're calling mobs mid-pack. Anyone would call you boosted. As for toxic, that wasn't even close to what's said in LFG. Don't be soft. It's lame and cringe. Then the rest of the group, which maybe they were friends or whatever, started showing up in my chat as well. It became like this huge argument. All my my chatters are just being idiots, right? They're just like, fueling the fire. And then, yeah, so that was the end of Jangbi's LFG run. But so Jangbi needs a little bit of time to recover until we get back out on the streets. It was a little bit of a traumatic experience.
It's kind of interesting because I've been going through my 0 to hero, and I feel like there are almost 0 people in my keys that ever type. If people type, it's like, somebody's talking about like doing a skip, or they say like GG, thank you for the group, and then they leave. And it's just like maybe 1 in every like 20 or 30 runs you'll get somebody who types and is toxic. But I feel like it's one of those moments that always like sticks out in your mind whenever somebody is just like a generational hater in your key.
Yeah, I mean, I could understand, like, I don't know, you can't really get bothered by stuff that much, but I could understand if you were me in an alternate universe where you're just a noob mage and you get lucky and meet a friend and he's nice and like helps you with a few keys and you think you're improving, and then you just get shit on by some random tank in LFG and you're really sad about it. But I don't know. I sort of agree with you that it happens few and far between. Like it does happen. We're not saying
it definitely does happen.
but like,
yeah,
you just have to laugh it off, right? Like you have to be like, whatever, And was I playing like dog shit and being a troll? I mean, yeah, probably. Like everyone's seen me play mage. I'm not trying to say that I was playing perfectly, but
the only time I've gotten flamed so far is whenever I actually forgot to invite a healer.
Wait, what?
What?
I made a group in LFG and I literally forgot to invite a healer. I think I was just like, I was like low item level and I just see these like DPS apply and I'm like, wow, that's a good DPS. That would be great for my group. And I'm like, oh wow, that's another good DPS. That would be great for my group. And then it's just like turned into this thing where I forgot to invite a healer. And then dude, it gets better. I zone out and go Resto Shaman because I'm like, oh my god, I'm ashamed.
Wait, what?
Hold on, I zone out and go Resto Shaman because I'm ashamed. And I'm so bad at Resto Shaman that the Vengeance Demon Hunter like is flaming me. It's warranted, by the way. Him flaming me is completely warranted in this case. And telling me about how much I suck.
Holy shit, that's actually sick.
It was insane.
Props to you for trying to salvage it.
I was like, oh. I was just like in disbelief, but yeah, this is actually the only time that I've encountered anybody who is toxic. But I would describe it as completely warranted in this case. I deserve to be flamed here for not inviting a healer. That is crazy. I can't believe nobody said anything before the key started.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So
what's your experience with resilient keys so far? I kind of wanted to talk about this a little bit more last week.
On my main.
Either both your main and your 0 to hero.
My 0 to hero, I haven't experienced any resilient keys at all. 0 of them. my main resilient keys are kind of an interesting system. I would say that I've benefited from them almost none, like literally just zero benefit from them, only negative experiences so far. But some of the people that I'm playing with have benefited from them, and so it's like pretty nice for them. I'm 1 key away from 17 resilient, and a couple of my friends don't have 17 resilient. So we were making an attempt to try to get the floodgate timed before anything else. That way we could continue to use my key and know it wouldn't deplete past the 17. But as from personally benefiting from it, I haven't benefited from it at all. And I've had a couple of experiences that feel like floodgate jail, where I had like 20 attempts in a floodgate 16.
I was one of them, I think, unfortunately, that caused you to go into floodgate jail.
Yeah.
No, you had one with Drogo and then one with me the next day, right?
Yes. Yeah, I was in floodgate jail for a little bit because people needed it for their resilient key.
I think it does. Like, I have some friends who have been pushing. I haven't done my push yet, but like, it's really nice also for catching up in a way. Because like, if a friend has like a good like a resilient 13, resilient 14, you could just hop in and learn the dungeon as long as like it's like you could actually prog keys now, in a way, long as people are willing.
The thing is, it's just like, so for the person who's already timed it, it gets increasingly unfun rather quickly to continue to prog a key over and over again.
Yes.
It did open up a nice content opportunity, though. I did help some people in LFG out. I listed a 16 Darkflame Cleft and got these people in voice. I think there's pros. I think there's pros and cons to the system. I think for people who primarily pug high-ish keys past 12 in LFG, it is almost exclusively a pretty good system for them. I don't think it's a system for me, but every single time I have to interact with it, it's normally a negative experience because I don't like the concept of progging keys, especially for like high keys. I would literally rather the key deplete, frankly. But again, the system's not for me, so I don't really have too many thoughts on it.
It is so powerful.
It is
don't
very
you just
powerful.
feel like, all right, for example, like let's say I log in and I'm in a group and I get invited to a group. Obviously, not everyone has this experience, but I get invited to a group of, let's say, like Dorky and Goop and some mage or whatever, and it's like there's a key that's scored for me, and we have someone with a resilient key of that, right? I mean, I'm getting that IO. Like, it's guaranteed, right? Like, we're like, normally that's like, we get one shot at this. Now it's like, we're like, with this team of players that I have, we're literally guaranteed to time this key. Like, we had a floodgate earlier. It was a 17, actually, which is funny enough because I struggled so much in that 16. And we do this 17, and you know, like within 1 or 2 tries, we get a really good run. We get to last boss, and like some weird shit happens where like there's like an AMZ in a puddle, and I like stand in it and get stunned, and we deplete it, and I feel like dog shit. But then it's like, there you go again. You know, a couple more depletes, end up on the last boss again, and then it's like, all right, well, we time it. Okay, there we go. Like, there's the score. Now it's done. Like, if you ever have the ability to play with somebody that has a resilient key above you, which like, if you are playing totally solo and pugs, it's rare unless you kind of like get lucky and end up in a group. Or if you're pushing like rank 1 world keys, obviously you don't really have resilient. But if you're like, I think title is going to be wild this season because title is like in that range
For
where
sure.
you're going to need to do resilient prison in order to get title keys. Like, it's just going to be that hard because other people will if you won't. Like, there are already people like sitting in resilient keys for hours and hours, like just for no reason, like just for a random score. And so it's really going to change the dynamic of Mythic Plus, I think, for title players. I think, like you said, if you're like close to rank 1, I feel like it doesn't really matter that much for you. Like, you don't really get to benefit from it. And if you're somebody who's like pugging or like trying to get to like, you know, like a smaller goal than title, I think it's actually like pretty good for you, right? It's pretty chill for most of the people who are in LFG, for people that want to do weeklies. It's like generally a good system for all those, but specifically for the people that are going for title range, it feels like it's going to be very, very tough at the end of the season.
It's really going to inflate IO a lot, I think. I watched, you know, this group here. It's Red, Euron, Sin, Dabnel, Pretzel, and Meteos. And I think Red, Sin, and Dan all needed 17 Floodgate for resilient 17s. And Meteos had already timed the 17 Floodgate 5 days prior and had a 17 Floodgate in his bags. And so I saw them in this. I saw they were in this key. They did like 9 or 10 attempts on this place. And it's one of those things that like there's a now like a very optimal way to play as a group to kind of continue, you know, now their entire group, except for Pretzel hasn't been playing as much, but like their entire group now has straight 17s across the board, and that allows them and affords them the opportunity to be able to prog 18s a lot easier. But the process of which somebody already has the resilient 17s and they have to help you out, that's kind of a weird situation, I will say. That's a weird consequence of the system, but it's just how it works.
Think about how crazy what you said is. They did 9 or 10 attempts on it, and already that's seeming normalized, but like, if you're a group and you're trying to do an IO key, 9 or 10 attempts is like literally an entire push week of gaming. Like, right? Like, if you were to deplete 9, you know, motherload 17s in a week, that would be literally every single motherload that you got for the entire week that you depleted. And now you can just knock that out in like a 3 or 4 hour sesh.
Is it fun?
Wild. I don't know.
Is it fun? Though?
It's different. I think
I agree with that.
I hate to say that it's bad or like, you know, not good for the game or not fun, because like there are some people that like MDI or TGP, and I do think it does create a little bit of a, I don't know, hyperbolic time chamber, if you will, right? Like, even like think about Jangbi, right? Like, there's no world where Jangbi can just like do 16 keys and get good practice on what it's like to like survive in a high key. But my buddy Dazer's like, hey, I got a 16 dark left and I can't sleep either. Let's just be idiots in Group Finder for 6 hours. Like, I genuinely feel like I got a lot better doing that. Like, obviously not everyone's going to have that experience, but you might sometimes. I mean, I was in a group, I was pugging in a group where it was literally the same situation where there was some boomkin from DMG who was like, had all-time 15s and he was just like helping his buddy, and his buddy had like, you know, a 10 or 11 in the dungeon, and we did a questionable pull that killed us in a Priory, and then we're like, yeah, let's walk out, walk back in, and then we time the key after that. So I mean, like, you do, I think if your IO is good enough that you get invited to groups, or you're like a tank or a healer, I think you can benefit a lot. But sort of what Tettles said, I think will be true too. If you're a solo DPS, until you get really high up, I feel like you're not going to be able to benefit that much, because you're just mainly listing your own key in LFG, right? Like, that's probably still 99% of the keys that you've done.
I think for people who bounce around groups too, it kind of creates a weird dynamic if somebody has the resilient key and the rest of the group doesn't.
Yeah, for sure. I do think there's a little bit of like, I don't know, interesting and cool reciprocality that goes on there. Like, for example, we were doing a key with Ari. Ari's been pushing. You play with Ari a little bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's been playing a lot more this season. He's playing more than us. He has a resilient 17, and he actually helped me and Dorky with. I think it was his key that was the Floodgate 17 that we did, right? And while he didn't really benefit from that much, right? I mean, you know, getting a chance to run a bunch of keys with Dorky and slide in with Dorky's good side and Goop's good side, that, you know, that's not too bad, right? Like, and the thing is, if we upgrade that key and then we get a good 18 that he needs, like, okay, now everyone in the group kind of feels indebted, where if he's like, hey, let's go here next, I'm pretty sure all of us would have been like, yeah, sure, man, we'll go wherever you want, you know? So I feel like it is a little awkward, but at the same time, it's not that crazy. Like, you know, it makes the world go round. And if you're a DPS, now your ability to get friends and tanks and stuff has gone up a little bit. You now have a chance to become very valuable.
I do think it depends on the level disparity too. Like, having to spend 29 attempts in a Floodgate 16 to get it timed, and like hyperbolic time chamber some people into that key who haven't been pushing on the season, right? Like, I don't think Sang or Sherwin had necessarily been playing that much on the season. Having that hyperbolic time chamber those players to the point where they were good enough to time that dungeon on a 16, it doesn't feel great, especially if it's that many attempts.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, it also gives DPS, like Grau said, just an opportunity to get in the first place, which is, I think, a lot of people's problems. If you have something that is valuable to something, like it leaves a reason for you to be valuable to somebody else.
It also gives you a safety net if you're pugging an LFG, which I think is the biggest benefit of the entire system.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, just having that safety net and feeling like okay about listing your key and knowing that, oh, what's the worst it can happen? Oh, I can get left with a 13. You're like, oh no, okay, I'm actually going to get stuck at a 15. This is fine. I'm going to get caught there, which is, you know, that makes you feel better about listing your key and going for that 16.
Yeah, there's a lot of weird dynamics too, because like, for example, let's say we're in that situation where you have, you know, you're helping me get all my 15s done and you have a resilient. Well, then we time a key, right? Then you have a 16. Well, now we go into Group Finder, and technically we do want to try the 16 because, like, why not? But now there's so many of those no IO gotta go people in Group Finder, right? Who are gonna like, but we want to resilient it out, right? We want a team that sticks around. So like, I don't know, it's kind of a weird dynamic too there, where like maybe you don't take the guy that already has the 16 invited to your key. Yeah, I was actually kind of interested in this because I was in the middle of some key prison when I typed this out, and I was kind of interested to see what people had to say about resilient, and I feel like it makes perfect sense.
You see what I voted for too?
Yep. I think one thing that's kind of interesting is all the people 11s and below are kind of like, what the heck? It's kind of a funny thing that I didn't really think about, but not having your key depleted and trying to move up, like that's equally as important for people that do 11s and lower. And so while like the resilient system is only for 12 plus, and a lot of the people doing 11s and lower feel kind of bummed about the fact that they don't get to, they see everyone having fun over there and doing these resilient keys. I'm not sure how I feel about it. Again, it kind of it changes Mythic Plus pretty dramatically if there's no risk involved. Also, if you're pushing up keys, for example, it's not very often that you'll have all-time dates, right? Like you can move up the top 10 levels pretty quick that like, you don't really have to grind up levels in the same way that you do in 12 plus. Whereas like, you probably have some dungeons that you haven't done very high when you time your first 10 or whatever, right? And then I think there was not a lot of people that were seeing it as super negative, but there is some, right? And that's sort of the people who are out there pushing title, or like, the people or who feel obligated to help their friends and who are just sitting there like stuck in LFG for 6 hours with a 16 Dark Flame Cleft. Like there are some people that see the negatives, but sort of like Squishy said, is that the benefit of keeping your key literally resilient, right? Like having a fallback for when you get trolled in LFG, I think really does outweigh the negatives. So this, even when you hear me complaining or like talking about the system, I'm definitely not saying walk it back, because I do think it's a net positive for most of LFG.
For sure.
Even if it is an isolated issue for like title range and higher.
I think my honest opinions on it are like, I've brought up like very specific situations where it can be negative, but I think in general it's like pretty positive for like the landscape of the game. It's pretty positive for most people who are interacting with it in LFG in any capacity, and it kind of gives that safety net. And whenever I said it's not necessarily like for people like Growl or myself or whatever, it really isn't. Like it, there's maybe specific situations in which we interact with it, but more often than not, we're not really interacting with the resilient system all too often in any way that's super meaningful. You interact with it in occasion, but because there's like a very specific, and like I brought up that Meteos situation, there's certain situations in which there's a correct dungeon for your group to go to, but those are the only times that you really interact with it from like our level.
Do you think that the resilient key should go lower, or do you think 12 is the right starting point?
I don't know. I've always been of the opinion that, well,
not enough people list their keys, so I don't know.
So I think it won't affect things that much, just because, like I said, there's not that many people that are like trying to break into 10s and have every key timed at a 9. Like those people definitely exist. I feel like you could extend the resilient key system all the way down to the bottom, but I feel like it probably wouldn't affect that many people, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think most of the people who are asking for resilient at a low level are sort of just saying remove key depletion. They're not like, that's sort of the feedback that I've seen mixed of people that are saying they want it lower. Also, I think are just saying they want to remove key, or like a lot of people are suggesting have it one level higher, which is essentially remove key depletion, right? Like if you have all-time 8s, then your key doesn't go below a 9.
Oh my
which
god.
Is like, for all that's essentially, unless you're like really, really early in the system, that's essentially just removing depletion. So I don't think they should remove depletion. I don't think adding resilient keys down to +2 is terrible, but I also don't think it'll really help people that much.
Side note, I mean, something that I've been super happy with this season, I think the 3K IO achievement has been a smashing success. I feel like more players than I've seen in the past have actually had aspirations of pushing past just weekly keys, right? And actually going for that aspirational 3K IO. And I think that the tuning at the very beginning of the season has also helped with that a lot. And I think that Blizzard has actually, that's a couple of the reasons that I think this season's like super good. I do wish that Blizzard created like a transmog recolor and every, I don't know, let's say 100 IO after whatever like Keystone Hero is, like 2500 or whatever, every 100 IO after that, you get like a new transmog recolor piece, and then eventually at the end of the season, you get like some CM set recolor ish type of thing. I think that would be cool, and just continue to give people these more aspirational goal thing to continue to push or have like reasons to push, aside from going from the 3K achievement to rank 1 title, because I think there's still a pretty large gap there.
I mean, I think the keys has been, we've been waiting for this for a long time. How long have you and others been on about like, we need more rewards, these hotfixes suck? Like, this expansion has come so far in terms of Mythic Plus. Like,
well, we were complaining
complaining
about season 1, but season 2 turned out to be an absolute banger. So
yep. Only time will tell for season 3.
Yeah, I mean, I'm never gonna complain about more rewards. I'm always like more. Like, why not, right?
I think continuing to like so say they made an expansion wide like MOG set for your class, and then every single season it was like a new recolor of that, and then after you got Keystone Hero at like 2500 or whatever it is, and then every 100 IO you continue to unlock a new piece, unlock a new color, or like unlock a new piece on your character's MOG. And then eventually, at some point or whatever, you unlock a weapon as well, and that kind of thing. You get like the full CM set appearance. I think that would continue to be like pretty cool for people who want to push past 3K. Because right now there's no reason for people to. And I've seen a lot of people being like, "Yeah, once I get 3K, I'm gonna actually take a break."
One thing that a system that Blizzard doesn't use too often, that I think could be okay too, is temporary rewards. Like, if they don't want to overload, like, you know, having new sets for every single title, every single season,
Yeah,
just having something that like you get and that you can sport for a little bit. I think titles are a little bit boring, but like
I agree.
some sort of cosmetic effect, like, you know,
Dude.
let's say you get, you know, not title, you get like, you know, top 1% or whatever level you want it to be, you know, give some sort of cool like glow or some sort of cool mount, and maybe that goes away at the end of the season, and then or like the end of the and like
I
you
agree.
get, or maybe the expansion or whatever. Like, I don't know. I think really cool rewards, and then just make them temporary and cycle through. You know, you're like, oh yeah, you know, I got my 1% mount this season. You're riding around town or whatever.
So I think that static number is really good for like the collectors. Like static IO levels are really good for the collectors because that gives you something to like push towards. I think the percent based reward stuff is like, it's not great, like, because, you know, the rank 1 Mythic Plus grind for us is like an all season type of thing, right? Like, you have to basically play the season in full to be able to really achieve it, or at least you have to play at the very end of the season, you know. But for most people it's like an all season grind, and I think that like the static levels, giving people rewards at static levels, is typically going to be the correct thing, especially for cosmetic appearances like you're kind of talking about.
Yeah,
I agree.
But I like what Growl said, the glows. That could go so hard. I mean, you played Lost Ark, Growl. The weapon glows.
Yeah, exactly.
Those things were so cool. Like, if your weapon, like, let's say you hit title or you hit Hall of Fame in like the last tier, if everyone in that guild just had your weapon glow like really bright or something like that, that would be cool. I'd be down. Like, this shows that you accomplished something, and it doesn't mean anything other than I did this last season, and it can be temporary. That's fine.
It's like riding around on the Jaina Proudmoore mount for like the first couple of weeks after you kill the boss, and then
for like 1 week,
and then you stop riding around on it, yeah, because the normies have it.
Oh man,
that'd be cool though.
Okay, another news: we got the patch. So server's probably under maintenance while you're watching the podcast episode, and for the patch, the 11.1.5 official patch notes have released, and the only thing I was actually really surprised. I actually didn't recognize that this was super time gated. So the only things that are actually releasing today at time of watching this is the Winds of Mysterious Fortune, which is a leveling bonus thing. You get also 100% increased rep to major factions. There's also some potions that stack. So like the thing that got Preach banned a couple of expansions ago, that's back, except now it's intended. And then there's also the Defend the Arathi Nightfall scenario. But that's it. Why is the rest of this stuff with the patch time gated?
I don't know. That's a major complaint for this patch, because people generally enjoyed Horrific Visions, and it's not in yet. So
neither is Corruption.
Neither is Corruption. Not that Corruption is great, but you know, we'll skip that part. But yeah, and we have nothing on Dinars either, which is another thing people were looking forward to in the patch.
Yes.
Dude, I have no idea. It feels like the patch just releases a month later.
Yeah, like so. Funnily enough, so it's coming out on April 22nd, but the week of May 20th is when Horrific Visions come out, and then the week of June 3rd is when Dastardly Duos come out. Dastardly Duos, for those who don't know, I would equate it very similarly to like Brawler's Guild, where it's like a boss rush thing where you have to go for like high scores. It's kind of similar to Brawler's Guild. That's the best way of describing it. It's insane to me though that the two like the main piece of content that people are looking forward to, the Horrific Visions with the corruption, isn't until May 20th. Like, what in the world?
Yeah, I don't know.
So-
I mean, I've publicly supported the time gating system in the past, but let me be specific that I'm mainly talking about beginning of expansion when, people are just getting back into the game, they're deciding to play again, they might not have a character ready, like blah blah blah. For a patch like this, it doesn't really make sense to have a like lore week or 2 weeks or month or I don't really get why this is. I feel like this is going to make people come back, not many, but some, and then they're just going to be disappointed with like, where's the dinars? Where's this? Where's that? And even though Blizzard didn't technically say it's there, it's like, well, it's the 0.5 patch, right? Like, it's supposed to be the big patch.
Yeah. And it's one thing if it's like a week or two after. This is a month after. This is a long time. So, yeah.
Like, what is the
I
patch?
kinda feel like-
okay, I understand that for some people there is content in the patch, especially for like collectors or people who love leveling alts and stuff like that. There are some content for those people, but the main content that's in the patch has to do with like the Horrific Visions, and they're not there.
Yeah, and again,
Yeah.
right? Like, it's not like they need to let everybody do the lore and do the achievements before they put out visions, right? Like, just slam it all at once. Why wouldn't they? I don't know. I kind of feel like in their heads, they were kind of like, all right, this is our big content patch. There's lots of different stuff coming out. Let's space it out each week to kind of like, help retention or whatever. But then, when push came to shove and they're kind of looking at everything, like it was a little bit more barren than maybe they expected it to, or maybe they didn't have quite enough to release like right away. Like, I feel like even just like one little thing, like if they would have been like, Dinars on 0.5, like right on the day one, or like, oh, this Brawlers Guild thing is out, or oh, the Horrific Visions, just any one of the things,
Yes.
I feel like it would have been better. But it feels like having zero of the things other than just like the whatever the solo world questy stories stuff, I think is just sort of, I don't know, it's not enough.
I tend to
Yeah.
agree. If one of the three of them are on launch, it's like a much different vibe for the patch for sure.
Agreed. I mean, no dinars is kind of the big. Like, if we had dinars, at least there's something. But no. Did you guys talk about the dinars? I don't remember if you did or not. The
We talked
dinars
about it.
announcement.
We talked about it 2 weeks ago whenever you were here. I don't think we talked about it last week.
Because they made an announcement of dinars, which was just an announcement of an announcement, saying we haven't forgotten about dinars. We're gonna have an announcement about it after the patch comes live,
Which
is the weirdest announcement to make.
Well, a lot of people were thinking that they scrapped dinars, which, I wasn't thinking. I wasn't this person. But, like, there was a lot of people who were like, where are the dinars? Are they actually not coming out? Are they walking it back? And for me, it's just like, I'm kind of reading between the lines, and it's like, clearly they're just not coming out on launch. Otherwise, they would have said something. But
Yeah.
it's one of those things that, like, it would have been kind of weird if they came out on 11.15 launch, just because if you think about it like this, should I be able to buy Mythic Gallywix loot right now? The answer's probably no. But also, if I could, it wouldn't be like the worst thing ever.
Yeah, I mean, should you is a tough question. Like, I'm sure there's a lot of people in the comments that are cringing right now, being like, why not? Especially because there's a lot of really, really valuable items this
From like a
raid.
game design perspective, right?
Right.
I think like if it would, okay, here's the thing. Dinars in the past, you would buy a piece and it would be like track. It would be like an Omni track and it would be like 1 out of 15. You upgrade it all the way to 15 and you have this myth track piece. If it was something that was, you bought it at the very beginning of the season, or you bought it early on in the season, it was more progressive. Like right now, if I had like a Dinar item and it was a heroic Jaster Diamond, and eventually it was able to be upgraded to where I could upgrade it all the way to max myth track, and it was a more progressive experience, I think that would be like better. But the fact that it's all or nothing in that kind of way, where it's like, should I be able to buy Mythic Gallywix loot prior to the Hall of Fame being closed? It's kind of like a weird discussion point too.
I mean, based on what they've been saying, they want it to be a catch up when you've killed this thing for multiple times and you just haven't got the loot. And old Dinars, if they release now, I don't think fulfill that goal. Now, they haven't said what this new Dinars is, and there have been wild theories as to, like, is it going to be as simple as buy it off a vendor? Are you going to have to work for it? If they want catch-up, maybe it's like, you know, every time you kill Gallywix, you get a token of Gallywix. And the higher difficulties drop more. And you need to turn in 5 Gallywix tokens and a Dinar in order to get, a Jaster. And if you kill Mythic once, you get 5. You kill Heroic, you get 3. Stuff like that. Like, there's multiple ways that they can do this because they haven't said anything.
Of course.
And I feel like they're in a really tough spot right now. Sorry to interrupt. You're talking about the announcement of the announcement. The problem is they had to do that, right? Because there's basically this narrative going around that, 0.5 Dinars are coming out, right? Like, people in my chat are like, what do you mean Dinars aren't coming out in 0.5? Even though Blizzard didn't say anything about that, or maybe something fairly vague, the narrative of the community starts coming around, right? And I sort of agree with what you're saying, that Blizzard sort of didn't really say anything about exactly how these were going to work or whatever, right? And clearly they weren't happy with the exact other Dinar system in a normal season. So I do feel like they're in a little bit of a pinch here, where I think everyone is expecting just, here you go, here's a token, here's a mythic last boss Gallywix item as soon as possible, right? Whereas, just like you're saying, they might not want to do that. I kind of wonder if they're going to feel forced to do it now. Just because, like, imagine if they released a thing where you had to kill Mythic Gallywix 3 times to get a Jaster Diamond. People would lose their shit, right? Like, people would be furious if that was the case. Either, you said Dinars are back, blah, blah, even though Blizzard didn't say anything.
It's kind of this thing where you have, like, 2 different thought processes, right? You have the thought process of you as a player where you're like, yep, I don't actually give a fuck. I just want the immediate power. I don't really care about the longevity of the game or whatever. And then you try to think about it from, like, Blizzard's end, where they have to look at, like, player retention, and they have to look at, like, what is going to keep players for the longest term part of this game. And then you start thinking about it from that lens, and you're like, okay, well, what exactly are they going to do here? Because for me, like, I don't care. Like, if I got a Jaster Diamond tomorrow and I got a Max Myth track, great. That's gigabits. I'm buying it, right? Like, I'm not even worried about, not even thinking about it. But then from, like, a game design perspective, is that truly the healthiest thing for the game long term?
Yeah. And I think they shot themselves in the foot by pulling it off, because I do think that, like, if it was on, week, what was it, 16, 17 of the patch, that is exactly what they wanted to be, which is a bad luck protection, right? Like, that is, it's gonna be so long, the season's been out for so long, you can get, you can get the item you want. I think that would have been fine, but now it's odd. And the question that I've been asking is, like, why did they not just announce the thing now? Why are they waiting until after the patch launches to announce the thing?
Ian stated in that Nagura interview that they moved it off the renown track because they wanted it to be more flexible about when they could award it to people, because
but maybe they just didn't know what they wanted to do yet.
Yeah.
Like, they kind of let the community run wild with it, and now they're in, now they can't necessarily do what they want to do.
I mean, the only information about this entire thing has come from a Nagura interview from, like, literal months ago at the Warcraft 30th anniversary prior to the patch coming out.
Yeah, but the question is, why didn't they just announce, like, let's say they decided on what it was, like, why didn't they just announce it last week? Here's how you're going to get Dinars in the patch. Why did they say, oh no, we're waiting until after the patch to tell you what this is? Like, is this player expectation management, or are they trying to hide something intentionally that is coming out in the patch? Like, what is the goal here between that?
God, I wonder if people are going to be mad. I wonder if that's why they're, like, kind of waiting as long as possible. Yeah, like, your mind starts to wander a little bit. You're like, oh god.
Because that's the biggest issue with this, like, confirmation. Because all they said was, we haven't forgotten. We'll have more details to share about the implementation of puzzling cartel chips soon after the patch goes live. Like, that says nothing other than, we haven't forgotten that we said that.
We'll get info this week, I think, is what that's saying. Just reading between the lines a little bit.
I agree.
That sounds like we're getting info. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if, like, during the middle of this podcast or something like that, even prior to the patch, if they just, like, slam down a post.
Yep, you hear that, Squishy? I wouldn't be shocked if in the middle of the podcast,
Tettles has inside info.
Are out.
Tettles
has the inside info.
Dude, that's him. That's not me. It's him with the inside info. It's never me. But, like, yeah, I mean, Skarzard, he normally does their, like, public-facing loot posts, and he normally does, like, a pretty good write-up and summation about everything too. He's also very mask off as like as far as Blizzard goes, Blizzard's normally very polished and PR driven and stuff like that, and he's very just like down to earth gamer guy, and he just like kind of tells you how it is.
It's funny because I read this statement and I was like, this is the most PR'd statement I think I've read in a long time, because it doesn't actually confirm they're coming in 11.15. It just says we'll have more details to share about them. And it doesn't, like, this could mean we're going to share about the implementation that they're not coming, for all we know.
Okay, well, okay.
Now you even made Tettles mad.
98% chance that they're coming in 11.15. I think that it's very, very likely that they're coming in 11.15.
I agree with that, but theoretically, this is so PR that it leaves that option open if they decide to pull them.
Dude, people in my chat have this conspiracy theory that they've just scrapped Dinars, and I was like, just because they haven't said anything about them doesn't mean they're gone, man. They're coming. Like, I promise you, they're going to be bringing them in. It would be insane. People would be so mad if they did it. That the fact that they announce things. This is how Blizzard operates. Just for those who don't know, Blizzard waits until the last possible moment to announce anything to temper player expectations every single point. That's why they don't announce a patch date until like 1 week before the patch. That way, if somehow they had to ever change something, people wouldn't get mad about it.
You know what the funny thing is? Okay, this is just tangent, but I love how people still call them Dinars ever since the Shadowlands. Just like how names catch on. Like for years, Blizzard tried to call Mythic Zeros just Mythic, and everybody just keeps calling it Mythic Zeros, and they finally caved recently. It's very similar to Blaze. Like ever since Blaze on Farak happened, everybody just calls that mechanic Blaze now. It's so funny to me.
Yeah, an Ansarek or
like
whatever.
The fervent strike.
It's fervent, yeah.
What's a fervent? It's just like it's the fervent.
Like the galley rockets is just Blaze.
Yeah.
As another tangent, I just always have a sympathy though for game designers. I know it might feel bad to like be on the receiving end or want to play the game that you want to play, but I mean ultimately they do cater to, you know, trying to make an enjoyable experience. Like one thing I've been doing recently is playing with the music on. Like I don't really play with in-game music on. Like I guess maybe I should do it like at the beginning of expansions, but like it's kind of a vibe. Like it's kind of a vibe when like you get into a boss fight and the music changes.
Yeah.
Or you go to a new area and the music changes. But oh, my funny story was I know Squishy's gonna know what this is. I'm not sure if Tettles knows. Do you know what the program IRC is?
That's the AOL chat thing, right?
Yeah, well, it was basically like old people Discord. Like it's like, you know, really big chat rooms that people used to use.
Yeah.
And so I used to play this game. Yeah, and so I used to play this game called Guild Wars competitively. This was like 2005 to 2009. And recently the game has had this like 20-year anniversary like community event where like people are starting to come together. And one of my friends who is also like a competitive player randomly put together a Discord of like all the top people and like the competitive teams from 20 years ago. And it's like this boomer reunion or whatever of people playing. And so we've all just been like shooting the shit. It's like maybe 100 people. And one person literally posts this. He's like, oh, by the way, I have this on my hard drive still. And he posts chat logs from IRC from literally 20 years ago. And I'm just like, everyone is just like, oh my God. Like, this is young Growl, man. Like when I was like 14. And so of course, what do? I download the giant and normal file and I start searching my name.
Control F.
Crazy enough, there was there was 2 game devs that were actually in the chat. And it was like it's just crazy what a time gaming was back then, because there's literally 2 game devs in the chat just like shooting the shit with us and like talking about stuff and their plans or whatever. And I Control F my name and I'm looking at some stuff and I see this conversation I'm having with one of the devs. One of them is, I think his name is Morello. I think he started balancing for League eventually at one point.
Oh, is that the Morello Nomicon?
Yeah.
Oh
so Morello is one of them. Morello is one of them, and then another one is a guy named Izzy who left the industry. And I'm sitting here and I'm just some shithead 14-year-old kid just like whining about, oh, my class sucks, buff my class, you know. And one of the game devs is just like literally making fun of me because my guild died. He's like, hey, what happened to your guild? You know, and I'm like, oh yeah, it died because you can't fucking balance, like blah blah blah, and we can't win. And it's just like this crazy. And I'm like looking back and I remember being so frustrated at game devs or thinking that like they're so stupid, but like Man, I mean, it has got to be such a hard job to cater to World of Warcraft. And like, dude, I don't care who you are. Like, obviously, there's some people who are not great who work at every company, but like, there's probably so many people that care so much about this game and do everything to make, it just, I don't know. The older that I get, the more sympathy and respect that I have for people that work on these games and just like, they're literally fighting against us. Like, we're sitting here just like, give us everything, give us every item, give us every power, make my class OP. And we're like mad when they don't do it. And they're just like, I'm sorry, I'm trying to create a fun video game for you. And I think you might want to have fun a different way. And we're like, no, give me everything now. Stop my key from depleting, make my class OP, nerf Oracle Dispraise. It's just like, God, it's got to be so rough to be somebody who's in charge of all this shit.
It's like whenever you're young and you want candy for dinner, and your parents are like, no, you can't have candy for dinner. Like, one of the most eye-opening conversations I had was at BlizzCon, and they were talking about like gearing. Like, I was talking with like a Blizzard dev about this, and they were talking about like actually elongating the gearing process increases player retention just straight across the board. And I was sitting there thinking about it, and it's like, it's Blizzard's job to create this tension in the game. But of course, the players at the same point are always going to advocate for their own best interests on how to reduce that amount of tension, right? That they actually have, where they're always able to, just everything now, everything now, everything now. And so it's like the game developers always going to be kind of at odds with the player base as to like what you're supposed to do.
We talked about this with like the classic discussion, like some number of episodes ago, when we are like, oh, now summons are a thing. Now you can port to the dungeons, like compared to classic, where you had to, like fly there and make your way there, and it took 10 minutes both ways to get back to the dungeon, and it's just like run backs, all these kinds of things. Just, the players are always going to want more for quality of life, but some amount of tension needs to exist. It just needs to be the right amount of tension, and like that is actually fun, because a game that you can blow over that is just trivial is just, I mean, at least to me, not fun.
I mean, I think the gearing process. I think the gearing process generally does like a pretty good job, where it's like a pretty longer process. You feel like you get more powerful with each upgrade you get, and of course, it's not perfect, right? Like, some people would want to be like max geared almost immediately or something like that, and of course, players are going to advocate in their own best interests and want dinars with unrestricted access as early as possible. But I mean, there's some kind of like balance that they have to strike. And we talked about it whenever we talked about the Creation Catalyst. Whenever the Creation Catalyst came out, it was a solve because only raiders in the past were actually able to access tier. And Blizzard was like, you know what, that sucks. But then they released the Creation Catalyst, and it took 8 weeks to start. And now there's a reason that it doesn't take 8 weeks anymore, because it's just not fun. So you kind of have to manage, like whenever you're looking at it from Blizzard's perspective, they have to manage what's fun for the players, but also what makes sense for player retention long term. And it's one of those things that they just have to, those are the people in the Blizzard office in Irvine, California, and they have to make those executive decisions. And sometimes, it might suck, but it's just the decision that they made because they think it's going to be better for the health of the game long term.
Yeah, it's such an interesting topic. I remember I might have brought this up on the pod before, but there was a GDC talk from a guy who worked on Diablo 3, and he basically had an anecdote that said they came up with this idea for this big anniversary event or expansion launch or something, where we're going to massively increase the drop rates of all the super rare items. And it's like, so they did that for a weekend, and everyone's like, this is great. Everyone's playing, everyone's piling in, everyone's celebrating. And then after the weekend ends, they're like, all right, they're going back to normal now. And everyone's like, this fucking sucks. This feels terrible. And then retention just starts dropping off a cliff, and everyone's quitting. And it's like, you like set a standard for what people are used to, but people always want more. Like, you always want to hit the dopamine button, but the problem is you can't go back, right? Like, you can't be like, all right, we're just going to have the amount of drops that you get starting Monday. Like, then everyone is just like, I don't know. I think game development stuff is really interesting. It gives me an idea maybe for if anyone has any suggestions about a guest on the pod for something like this, dude, I feel like we could talk about that forever. And maybe not a Blizzard person, though. I don't know. Well, I'll dig into it maybe and think about it.
Yeah.
Because the problem with Blizzard people is they just probably don't want to talk about WoW stuff specifically, and it's harder for them. So maybe, but also like, I don't know, maybe another dev or like an ex-dev or something. Like, I know Kevin Jordan makes like really, he's kind of a classic Andy, but I don't know. Any suggestions that you guys have in the comments for someone who would add to this conversation or maybe talk about interesting stuff would be cool.
It's kind of interesting because World of Warcraft, I think, with the seasonal model, has proven that players will take a break at certain points during the season, but then they'll come back for the next season. And I think that that's actually been a big hit for them, just knowing that players, while they might take a break, they're still going to play the new season and stuff like that. And Dinars, for Blizzard, from a Blizzard perspective, that should be that thing that kind of gets people over the edge to keep them around for maybe like 2 or 3 more weeks that they otherwise maybe would have dropped off in the past. And so their timing of like when the Dinar should show up should actually be pretty precise. Because like last season, I think that I saw a lot of people who got 630 item level, and then they were like, you know what? I'm close enough to finished. I'm done playing the season. And then they stopped playing, right? I had a lot of friends who were like that, where they like got 630 and they were just like, whatever, I'm done. And so, but at that point too, if they got like the Dinar the week before they quit playing, maybe that would have tied them over for like another 2 or 3 weeks and got them to play a little bit longer. And like from a Blizzard perspective, that's what you're looking at whenever you're looking to deploy this Dinar.
Wow, that was
tough because they very clearly wanted raid to be valuable. Not to continue on, but just as like part of the reason we're talking about this is like how good these raid trinkets are and these raid sort of like what Tettles calls them cantrip items.
Very like rare items, cantrip items. Yeah.
Just like they clearly wanted the raid to be valuable, and they're like figuring out ways to make it so you feel inclined to raid, but it doesn't feel mandatory. And sort of that's the trade-off with the tier items, right? Like tier is like very chill now, right? You get your catalyst, you're basically 4-piece guaranteed by week 2 or 3 if you play the game, and then you don't have to worry about raiding at all to get tier. I mean, maybe LFR or whatever, but the thing is, like, they still want raid to feel fulfilling, right? If there's nothing good that comes from raid, no one's gonna want to do the raid, so they have to find that balance.
Yep. Well, what happens?
An incredibly in-depth conversation when most people wouldn't just start complaining.
Welcome to the bench, where we talk about everything. We do our damnedest to try and talk about every point to make sure everybody has something to complain about in the comments.
All right, let's get back to the complaining, because Blizzard has released some Mythic Plus dungeon tuning as of 2 days ago, and it was quite controversial. So I would describe most of this tuning as quite good. They secretly buffed the Candle King HPS check by... So apparently there was a bug where the Candle King's heal absorb was supposed to go on 3 players who got the circles. It wasn't. It was only going on 1 player. And then they hotfixed it, and basically it made the heal check just demonic on that fight. Then Blizzard was like, that wasn't really our intent. And then they nerfed it by 20%, which the fight's still very hard. It's still one of the hardest heal checks. But by nerfing the heal check by 20% on that heal absorb, honestly, in my opinion, very good change. The Cinderbrew Meadery Hobgoblins no longer spawn brew drops on death. I would be down if they didn't spawn them at all, but
same.
Got nothing to do with me. They added some more VFX to a bunch of abilities. I think the VFX on this patch have been excellent. There's a ton of VFX that they've added that have been completely unnoticed or not even talked about by them. They added like charge animations on Hobgoblins. I would be down for like a charge animation on the first boss of Darkflame Cleft. I feel like the VFX this patch have been absolutely stand out. They did some very warranted nerfs to Priory the Sacred Flame, including nerfing the Ardent Paladin health and the last boss HP, trying to make some of the mobs, the Lynx, is a little bit more valuable to pull. But the only change that people talked about on this entire patch, I talked about all those good things, those great changes that they just made. The only change that people talked about, though, was the KUJO change, which they reduced KUJO's health by 10%. Nobody's complaining about that. But then they addressed an issue for who, you might ask. We'll see. Where KUJO could be hit during venting flames in a certain angle, where previously you were able to hit KUJO around the box, but now you have to be fully LOS. And something happened with this clip. I'll find it.
Why you streaming my raid?
I don't know, bro. I was looking for a clip, but for some reason it didn't give me the clip at all. It just gave me your raid. Yeah, I found it.
There.
So yeah, you have to be completely behind the box. And this was... people were mad, and it was pretty, in my opinion, kind of just. This change is, in my opinion, not great. The issue is that KUJO is just not a good boss, I think, is like the biggest issue. And there's a lot of forced downtime on the boss just in general. And having to fully LOS where you could previously tank gap the fight and continue to be able to hit the boss the entire time just made it... I understand why Blizzard changed it, because it's not great design to be able to hit through the box, especially if your tank doesn't know what's going on. But also at the same point, it's a fundamental issue. The boss isn't very good.
Yeah, so my thought on it is I'm all for them fixing jank in a good way. The
Yes.
10% health is like somebody just looked at the raw numbers and was like, they do about 10% damage during the box hiding, so we'll just remove 10% health. And didn't think about, like, one, how fun it is to hide behind a box for 4 seconds.
Yeah.
And two, like, the overall flow of the fight where the boss is leaping for half the time and now you're hiding for, like, a quarter of the time.
I would have
Like,
doubled the cooldown on the leap and the vent jets, like made it happen way less frequently. And like, I don't think you're getting to a point where they're reworking the boss in the middle of the season. Like, it's just not happening.
I don't think they are either.
But if they just increase the cooldown by like twice as much as it currently is, that way your melee DPS can actually, because it's really hard to actually get a full bloodlust on this fight now too, because you have to LOS the entire time. It's really hard to like full send your CDs too, especially as a melee, because the boss goes jump, 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 and then you go like, LOS, and you're just like, when am I supposed to cool down? Like, what's even going on?
I like the minimum thing that I would have done is fix the box and make vent jets just an instant cast kill, like insta kill ability. You just hide for the 1 second and then you're back out and DPSing. I think that's fine. I think that is a fine line of sight mechanic, but the fact that you have to AFK for like 2.5 seconds behind a box is very stupid. Like, if you just had to quickly hide, come back, I think that's okay.
Part of it too is getting in position to AFK behind the box also is like a pain in the ass in its own right. And if you're not like perfectly behind the box too, you just like get hit by the first tick of the vent jet and you just immediately die too.
This is a very BFA boss. Like, you know, back in the day, I saw the leap actually hit the boxes. I don't think any player fucks up those boxes anymore. Like, everybody just knows you don't hit the leap to the boxes anymore. So like,
That is true. I don't think I've ever seen the box blow up before. Or I mean,
like,
this
Season, yeah.
Realistically, I think this boss needed a rework coming into this, like where he drops like 5 boxes and every person needs to hide behind their own box, and it's like a, you know, just a pulse AoE rather than a channeled or something.
Yeah.
But it's too late for that. The big question is, why 2.5 seasons did they finally fix this, I think, for me?
Well, they addressed an issue, of course.
It took them...
Yeah, I
Let's
can
see.
I sort of see their perspective. I mean, the big thing they're trying to address here is just like that it's a jank mechanic, especially for tanks.
Yeah.
And like like it's not explained to you at all, and it creates this like weird sort of toxicity of like, you know, oh, you're not doing X like Y like this other group. Whereas like if you're a tank, unless you're literally watching streams and stuff, how the hell are you supposed to know that you can drag it to like a specific corner so that people, right? Like if you're a tank, you would literally never know you could do that unless someone
Yeah.
else tells you that. And it's like, yeah, so I understand why they wanted to get rid of it. I think Squishy's suggestion of making it just like a instant kill you if you're not line of sight mechanic instead of 4 seconds of pulsing would be better, but ultimately, like, they're both still shit. And it's not really any better. I don't know. I don't really hate it. I don't think it's that big of a deal. I think it's a small quality of life increase in pugs, probably. And I think it's like whatever.
Yeah.
And, you know, like, oh no, like, you know, 15 seconds out of
Yeah.
the key, you have to hide behind this box.
It's definitely not the end of the world. It's just not a great boss, I think, is like, it's kind of where I've landed on it. It's just like, it's not a great boss. The LOS mechanic isn't fantastic. And you're like, okay.
So it took them almost 6 years to address this issue. It released on June 25th, 2019.
I guess sorry. I think them fixing jank makes sense though. Like,
I agree with that.
I'm not shocked that they fixed it. It's
I'm shocked they fixed it now. It's basically like not the second time. Not at the beginning of the season when they fixed it, reworked all the bosses, but like mid-season on a Friday midweek.
I can kind of see it. Like, you know how, I don't know, you ever have the situation where you like set something live or you like launch it and you're like, you know, you kind of like, yeah, maybe I should do this, but people will understand or they'll get it or they won't mind.
yeah.
And then just like people complain about it and then they keep complaining about it and they keep coming. And then like after a while, you're just sick of it and you've just gotten like so many people mention it like, oh, you know, you should make a chat command for this or the command should say this or it should link to this instead of this. And you're like, all right, whatever, fine. You know, I'll just switch it. I think that was sort of a whatever, fine from the devs there. Of just like they probably had so many reports of like people having shitty experiences on that boss where there's like, all right, whatever,
Dude,
you know, we'll just.
It's crazy. Like, I actually have very little complaint about balance wise this season in dungeons. Like, The only thing I would even like, I don't even know what I would change at this point. I would maybe increase the count of like some of these mobs that are being skipped with meld, like bubbles or like the Motherlode Peacekeepers and just like some of these random mobs. And then like maybe I would nerf Impale from the Knights and Priory the Sacred Flame, but like that's about it. Like I feel like there's not actually that much that you can really talk about. It's like, oh yeah, these are all these BS mechanics that need to get nerfed. I feel like Blizzard's done a great job this season of having like a pretty well-tuned season, all things considered.
I think that's probably because you don't play the mobs that need that, aka all the lieutenants in Theater of Pain.
The lieutenants in Theater of Pain, some of the terrible trap. Well, to be fair though, like
I think I would just increase the count. Like if the Theater of Pain lieutenants, instead of 20 count, they gave 40 count, I'm playing every single one of them.
Okay, so the lieutenants, there's been a lot of talks about those guys. In my opinion, those first two aren't that bad. Like they're a little slow, but I mean,
these guys are demonic.
The annoying one is the guys before the boss. That one, especially, what is it, Ardent Nevermore? Is that his name or whatever? The one that like constantly.
No, it's
like double.
It's Wreck. It's with the Swift Strikes and the unbalanced.
Whatever one that just does like infinite AOE damage and like I don't know, they're both annoying. But I don't know. I don't think it's really that bad. I'm kind of in a spot where it's like, on one hand, I kind of want to say like, hey, stop putting all these annoying mobs that have True Sight right in our path. Like, you know, they're very clearly wanting us to fight these. But at the same time, like, well, you know, if you're a group that's good enough to skip it, you're going to figure out a way to skip it anyway. It's just a little annoying that you have a mob like Bubbles, for example, that is so bad that you'll literally spend 30 seconds just to not do it. Like, it's one thing if it's like, oh, we're going to spend 30 seconds to like unlock some new pull and like grab these two groups together to like make it more efficient. But you're literally just spending you're just minus 30 seconds because you don't want to do this mob. Like, it's just one mob sitting here on the bridge. And it's like, to me, that's a little bit out of whack.
I mean, it's a count thing. I mean, like, look at the first pull to dungeon. The first pull to dungeon is 10.5%, and you spend, you know, I don't know, 45 seconds killing this first pull. Bubbles is half the count, and you have to sit here and fight him solo. You can't pull him with anything else.
Yeah, he's very scary.
I think Blizzard is still fighting this war on how do we make people play the things that we want them to play. And for years, they're like, just add True Sight. Just add True Sight. That's going to fix it this time. Just add True Sight. Meanwhile, people are like Shroud, Distract, Death Run, like all these stupid things. And it's just like, even in Raid, this doesn't work. People were skipping the Galagio to go to One-Armed Bandit. What do? They add True Sight to the mobs.
Yeah.
Because that solved the problem. Like, instead of de-incentivizing skips, you should incentivize playing the trash, which probably results in easier trash or more count. Like,
dude, I mean, look at these Peacekeepers.
Blizzard needs to get that in their head.
These Peacekeepers are 8 count. The War Machines at the end of the dungeon are like, what, 22? Yeah, like, I mean, if this Peacekeeper's 22 count, I'm playing it. Like, it's not even that bad of a mob. It's just that it's not worth the count relative to the time. And especially with like mini bosses like Bubbles, who are 20 count apiece. Like, I have to fight him solo. Or these Hobgoblins and Dark Flame Cleft that are only 10 count. If you double these guys' count, it doesn't matter that this is a demonic pull that you have to do almost solo. If it's so efficient count-wise, I'm going to play it regardless. You're
going to find a way to play it.
What I worry is about to happen is they're about to stop your ability to be able to nelf off mobs that have True Sight. That's kind of my expectation. I fully expect with what's going on this season, Blizzard's going to stop your ability to be able to nelf off True Sight mobs. But
I hope they don't do that. I mean, my biggest... Where I disagree here is I just don't really think it's that much of a problem. Like, if you're doing a weekly 10 to 12 key, like, whatever, you just fight Bubbles and you don't care and you go slower,
of course.
You know? And the problem only really arises from, like, higher-end groups or whatever that are really trying to be time efficient. And, I mean, I don't know, like, let them, you know? Like, if they want to pull Bubbles and waste 30 seconds and get out of it, like, there's some exceptions. Well, like, for example, Workshop is really weird where there's this pack at the end, right? You bring this up right away, and it's like, how do you even get to the end of the dungeon when you need that pack? Like, you basically have to try really hard to do that, and it's like that stuff like that's a little annoying, but I don't know. The whole because the thing is, when they put True Sight mobs in the dungeon, I know people are not going to want to hear this or whatever, but sort of like what I was talking about give the game devs some credit. They're trying to create a textured experience so that there's different types of encounters and different things that are challenged and that you have to overcome, right? And unfortunately, like, sometimes those challenges are difficult or time consuming, or people don't want to do them. And if they just let you do whatever challenges you want to do, obviously what's going to happen is you're just going to, pull giant and pull tons of mobs and skip every mini boss. But, part of the problem there is like you have a situation where people only want these giant uncapped AoE classes, and then your class feels like shit if you're target capped or you're like a prio damage specialist or whatever. And it's like they want to create they're aiming to create an experience with the dungeon for most players. And again, if you're somebody who's like doing a 15 key or a 16 key, yeah, your tank might have to pull this to the side and meld. And to be honest, like, it's not really that hard. Like, stop crying, just do it.
Yeah. I mean, how many, in Jangbi's experience, how many of your pugs are trying to skip that last pack in workshop? All of them?
Yeah, I would say almost not. Well, to be honest, I would say not always until you get above 12s.
Okay.
I've had pugs kill that. I've had pugs just hold W and kill it. Yep.
It's one of those things that and I think that Squishy put it best. You should just you should just over incentivize pulling mini bosses or mobs that have to be pulled solo. Because like sweats like us, we're gonna always go for the most efficient thing. But if you make these mobs, again, like the Peacekeepers, dude, why are the Peacekeepers 8 count? Like, if those mobs are 22 count, we're playing them. Like, it's for better or worse. Like, there's no way I'm looking to ever skip these mobs. For most people, they don't need them skipped, but like,
let's say they took bubbles and then they made bubbles. They added 50 count to bubbles, right? And then they added 50 count to the dungeon that you needed. Is that making the dungeon better or more? Were you like, all right, nice, this is good, I'm glad they did this?
I mean, I still think you skip bubbles probably and just AoE more at the start, right? Like, right?
I mean,
like
50 counts a lot. I don't know, maybe
50 counts is a lot, but
50 counts a lot. That dungeon's like 470 counts or something, right?
But you're also blowing everything on bubbles. And if you can find some extra mobs that are just melee mobs, like the beginning of Floodgate, where they don't really do much, you're adding 0 time.
Yeah.
Or very minimal time because you're just adding more targets into your meat cleaver.
I guess my point is like incentive. Basically, when you say the word incentivize, especially when it comes to count, really you're just saying don't give people the option, right? Like making it way more count to the point where you just feel like you have to pull it, right? Like that's just basically true sight plus. It's like what was the phrase that they use? Like creating a wall. Like basically they're saying like, put a door on the other side of bubbles and you can't get past the door until you kill bubbles. And it's like, to me, I would rather at least have the option to be able to meld skip it or whatever than obviously you want all the trash counts to be perfectly balanced and equal so that you have different ways to do different things. But I like having the option, and I don't think insanely buffing the count of bubbles or making it so you can't meld bubbles are the best solutions. And I think what we have now is pretty good.
I would remove True Sight from bubbles. If given my option, I would remove True Sight from bubbles. That way you're not forced to meld him. And if you wanted to commit something like a Shroud or an Invis Potion and skip him, you could. I think it's one of these things that you kind of called it out, right? Where you're talking about the door thing. It was a Morgan Day interview that he was talking about that. They keep adding these True Sight mobs in corridors and hallways in the hopes that people are playing them, and then that's forcing us to meld skip them off, at least at like a high level, right? Which then that creates copycats, but like at a high level, that's forcing. I'm putting this in quotation marks, not actually forcing, but it's telling us that we should be looking to meld them off. I would prefer if we just went back to just like less True Sight mobs, and if you wanted to like send your Invis Potion, you can, because I've pressed approximately 0 Invis Potions this season, and I haven't needed them for one thing, like at all. I cannot even imagine what I would need an Invis Potion for.
Yeah, I haven't either. I actually was trying to add a keybind for my mage for potions, and then I realized, why don't I just macro it into my cooldowns? Because like you literally never use any other potion, right?
I haven't invised in 2 seasons. Like there's just like no invis potions because they keep putting True Sight mobs at these choke points in places that you would historically Shroud or invis pot past. Now you just can't.
I mean, count is always really interesting. People are always going to find the most, the best route given the efficiency. I mean, there's a reason that MDT has efficiency, but I think the thing that like what people have fun in Mythic Plus is not single targeting a single mob for, you know, a minute and a half to 2 minutes. Even if it provides good count, you're probably not going to be having fun.
Yeah, of course.
Which is probably why people don't like Theater of Pain.
But I think that I mean, I think that with Floodgates specifically, it's one of those things that Bubbles is so atrocious count-wise that you feel incentivized to skip it at a certain point, where these people in my 12s are trying to skip him, and I'm just like, what are we doing here? Like, we cannot be trying to skip it. We're in a 12. Kill this guy. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah. Anyways.
Okay. Let's talk about the MDI a little bit.
Ooh.
So there was a lot of healer representation, actually, in Dark Flame Cleft in particular. Not in Priory of the Sacred Flame. Priory of the Sacred Flame, of course, was like almost exclusively Discipline Priest. Which makes sense. Priory of the Sacred Flame, the Impalability, the shouts, Disc Priest, it's just, I mean, the Paladins, Disc Priest is obviously very, very good in there.
Well, real quick, because for the people who aren't in the loop, because who the hell pays attention to MDI? So are time trials over right now?
Time trials concluded today, yes.
Okay. And so basically the way it works, right, is you have 2 different dungeons. Your team has infinite attempts to do these dungeons as high as you can, and your key level and time to like gets your placement in the TGP, which doesn't really matter that much because TGP is like a group thing. It's not like MDI where it's seeded. So as long as you're making it in, like it kind of matters. Obviously, you want to be like not in groups with certain teams because they're good. But at the same time, you don't really have a lot of control over that, like how good or bad another team does. Like they might just slam up a time. Yeah. But at the same time, that like you want to go hard and you want to sort of like prove what your team is capable of. So a lot of times teams do take things quite seriously. Yeah. So anyway, back to class balance and stuff.
Yeah. So I mean, Mage, both Arcane and Fire saw a little bit of play. Pretty much everybody else ran DK Moonkin as the other 3 DPS. There was a couple of comps that were a little bit off meta-ish that saw a little bit of play. There was a Demonology Warlock that saw play with the Resto Druid Healer. There was a full off meta comp with the vegans, as I call them, where they play Bear Druid, Mistweaver Monk, Hunter, Fury Warrior, Outlaw Rogue, or I mean, I guess Walk's playing Assassination Priory, but he normally plays Outlaw whenever he can. And But in general, people are tending to play this balanced Druid Unholy DK Arcane Mage comp. But the biggest and most notable thing was the healer diversity that happened in Dark Flame Cleft, particularly because Candle King's HPS check. Growl, what do you think about the healer diversity, where we saw Resto Shaman, Discipline Priest, Resto Druid, and Mistweaver Monk all see some representation, at least in the top 20 runs for this dungeon?
Yeah, the community's right. Healer balance is total dog shit. Healers are in a terrible state right now. It's absolutely atrocious. No, but on a serious note, like everybody's playing Vengeance, everyone's playing Mage, DK, Boomy, and healers have the best diversity of any of the 3 roles. And while it's true that maybe if you didn't nerf Oracle, you would see more Oracle, I mean, I actually think Blizzard did a pretty good job with their nerfs. I think maybe they took it a little bit too far, only because I don't like seeing them make the best class not the best class. I don't think Oracle, like, they definitely deserved it, but anyway, yeah, so some interesting things here. So I would say Druid is probably the best pure HPS healer.
Mm-hmm.
And you see teams running Druid, even with another Druid in the group. Playing 2 Druids generally is not super great. And so they're saying like they value that healing and survivability over all else. The damage is also okay. You also have Shaman. Shaman, I think, is a little bit of a sleeper right now because they're still fine healers. They still have all the good utility that they used to. Also, their mastery buff is very, very good. Boomkin benefits a lot from mastery. Mage doesn't mind mastery. And Unholy, not only are you getting the mastery, but you get the Wind Fury or whatever, which is a massive DPS gain, especially on single target for DK.
I think Shaman buff is the second best offensive dungeon buff. I think that buff is insane. I would argue it's the second best buff.
There's
some situations where warrior buff 5% attack power for specific melee compositions can be a lot better.
Right, yeah, I mean,
but in general,
we're talking about either the meta comp right now or generally speaking. I would say Mark of the Wild and Wind Fury are like above and beyond the best.
I agree. I'm 100% right there with you. Yep.
So one interesting thing though is that Whippy and the sort of ex Echo boys, they're sort of proving that you can do this with Disc anyway. So kind of interesting to see if teams will maybe migrate back to Discipline Priest, because maybe part of the reason that they ran Druid is because they think Priest couldn't heal it. But yeah, I mean, very, very cool to see 3 different healers healing a 21 Dark Flame, and then also Ortimus in there and a 20, and maybe he could have done a 21 as well. I know they didn't go super hard.
The interesting thing for me is that 2 of these healer specs provide a buff, and the third one doesn't. Right? We just talked about how Shaman buff is like super powerful. Great. Priest brings Stam, which is really good for dungeons. But the extra Druid already, when comps are running a balanced Druid, doesn't add anything other than what the Druid normally brings, which I think is really interesting.
The Druid healer is the most comfy healer, I would say, on the Candle King, though.
I agree.
In terms of mobility, there's a lot of situations in which a priest healer. So Shaman has Spirit Walker's Grace, where they can actually kind of get out of a pinch if they ever get targeted with the pickaxe. The Druid healer has by far the best mobility. Priest can run into some situations, particularly if they get targeted with the pickaxe over and over again, where if they start like losing healing globals on Candle King, you can actually start to get into a lot of trouble. So you kind of have to. There's like a meta strat where you're playing up against the wall and using the terrain to make sure that the candles are put in a correct spot. I think like a super high level, you have to have your healer like fully planted the entire time and able to cast on your entire group. I'm interested in seeing how many more dungeons you see this level of healer diversity. I think that the dungeons that are on the table for good healer diversity are Dark Flame Cleft and Operation Floodgate. I do kind of suspect that Priest Healer will probably be by far the most popular pick in all of the other dungeons, though. For DPS perspective, though, it's going to be kind of interesting because there is the class diversity rule that we kind of talked about a few weeks ago, where on day 1 of your group, the 3 most popular specializations that you are playing are banned for the final day. And, you know, I talked to Ortimus about it a little bit, and this is really funny. Him and Squish are going to play Bear Druid Mistweaver in every single dungeon, and then they're going to have their Hunter, Warrior, and Rogue play different versions of Hunter, Warrior, and Rogue. So they're going to play the same classes, but they're going to play different specs, and then they're going to show up with marksmanship, whatever. I think Arms is a little bit better than Fury, and then Assassination probably on the last day.
I thought Tank and Healer get banned first, though, if there's an equal number.
If it's equal number, but...
So what? They play one tank for their lowest, a different tank and healer for their lowest key, and then swap over?
Something like that, yeah, probably.
Jeez. I mean, what's funny is, like, so people talk about this diversity rule, and on paper, you think that making rules that cause you to play certain specs is better for diversity. This sort of shows that it kind of is, but it kind of isn't, because here you have what is basically like the guys known as the off meta squad that play weird stuff, that, you know, are successful with it, and they're the ones that probably have the most issue with the rule, right? Because these are the guys that are like not one tricks, but specialists with their classes, to the point where they're not re-rolling every single season, and now they can't play those specs in every key because they're required to switch. Whereas, you know, you have somebody like Mode who just will play any healer at a top level. Like, this rule is nothing for him, right? Like, he'll just play whatever.
I don't know what these other teams are realistically going to be looking to do. You know, I think that there's a lot of flavors of Mage that are good. I think you could get one of the flavors of Mage that you don't want banned. But then, like, the DK and the Moonkin, it's not... You're going to probably have to, like, open up your bag a little bit more. Maybe you put your tank on, like, a Prot Warrior for
I think it's
going
to be pretty nothing burger. Like, I think the healer balance is really good right now, to the point where you'd be an idiot if you don't sack your healer. Like, the difference between the healers is like nothing, especially considering you can also pair that with the Boomkin, right? Like, Boomkin's good, but, you know, you can play you can play not Boomkin and then play Disc Priest, then lose the Boomkin and play Resto Druid, so you still have all that utility. Mage, you can play multiple specs as well. Like, there's 3 right there, right? Like,
I agree.
Swapping between Druid and another big uncapped AoE class, swapping between Mage specs, and swapping your healer, and that's like the entire everything.
So I'm obviously, like, from a macro perspective, which is generally what, like, I focus on in terms of strategy stuff. All you need to do realistically is have your Boomkin and your DK play something else, a different spec for the very first key, and then your tank, and then your tank, your healer, and your mage will get banned, and then you just play the other mage spec, and you play a different healer, and you play the tank. Like, that's realistically the only thing that matters. As long as the tank, the tank is probably the hardest one because your tank has to play one more key than the off meta specs.
I think you don't want the Venge to get banned realistically, but like Warrior is really good right now.
You could like so here's the thing. Like, let's say we don't have they announced what the key levels are starting at?
No.
Okay. So let's say it starts at like a 12 or something, right? You can probably play Warrior up to a 17.
Yeah, it'll be very easy then.
Yeah, you play Warrior to a 17, which is five keys. Then you play Venge for the last 4, therefore Warrior's higher than Venge. Then you play, one less. So you play or like maybe you play up to an 18, so it's 6-3. Then you play not Moonkin and not Unholy. They play something else for 5 keys. Then they swap to Boomkin Unholy, so that you have 4 on those specs. Then the Prot Warrior, any healer, and your mage spec gets banned. Boom. This rule is now useless due to the rule.
To be fair, it at least gives them a little bit of a nudge, right? Like, let's say they're considering trying something new or like trying some strategy.
Sure.
Like, I think it won't be the fix that people want, but also at the same time, people are just stupid and they'll be like, "Oh, it's cool." More people will be like, "Oh, my class is playing." Like, that's really all they want.
Yeah, I mean that's what a lot of people want. They say they want class diversity, but they actually just want their piece of shit spec represented.
I will say that if it starts higher than 12, then that would be really interesting. Because 12, 13, 14 is all really easy to solve because the more low-B keys where you can roll with realistically any spec, the easier it is to cheat the rule.
They started at 16 last season, and key cap was like 19s and 20s.
So if they started like 17 and the key cap is 20s to 21s, I think this rule is actually going to matter a lot. But if they started at 12 or a 13, this rule does not matter.
Okay.
I was saying they should just only count the highest keys, so that instead of switching comps mid dungeon and low keys and high keys is the strategy. I think that because I think that also promotes like actually trying to make the class work and succeeding on it rather than just this is our fodder plus 12
100%.
key doer.
I'm 100%
with you. I think it should have been the what you finished your highest key with, the composition that you finished your highest key with.
I agree with that. Because right now you're just gonna try to do throwaway keys with as many non-meta specs as possible, and it's more of a macro game than it is like figuring out if anything else. You're gonna spreadsheet this, in other words.
Dude, the worst part is you just have people like Dorky on your team that just have no idea how the rules work, and he's just gonna be like, "Yo,
is he doing the TGP?
You got to get on a Resto Druid for this key. We need to get the rest or like, is there a ban? What do we got to play in this dungeon?" It'll be like in the middle of the competition.
Dude,
I don't know. So do you guys know? So here's. So I thought there was a team that was gonna be like.
I thought this was the team with Yips tanking, but I see Dorky playing with these fucking people.
I heard something about either Yip stepping out or being busy and Dorky helping with their practice or something. I don't know.
Okay.
I think it's a little bit up in the air too. Like I think so. A lot of times with these teams, it's not always super official, and you just sort of be like, "Yo, you want to just sign up and see what happens?" And that's like seeing these guys, like seeing Yips and Timber and Billy, like those guys are definitely like just sign up and see what happens kind of guys. So maybe they just didn't really have a plan and they're still kind of figuring it out. But yeah, I don't know.
You see this drama about people buying a raid lockout? You hear about this?
I did.
Yeah.
Okay, Squishy, you want to explain it to the audience what exactly is going down?
So basically, there's a guild that is 5 of 8 mythic, who was like a some amount of pulls into one armada. I want to say over 100, but I don't remember. Who just bought a galley only lockout from Fat Shark Yes for I want to say something in the 20s, 20 million amount of gold, and they are progging mythic galley to try to get Hall of Fame. I'm
glad you said 20 something million, because what was this dumb number, like 80 something being? I'm like, there's no way. I'm like, there's no way anyone would pay that. 20 million is like closer because you're basically buying a sale, sort of, right? When you
You're
buy
buying
that.
2 mounts, 1 or 2 mounts, yeah.
Um,
But
Yeah.
like they're now 100. That guild I think is now 170 pulls in. They're at like 25% or like 30% or something. So like they've made progress. We'll see if they eventually kill it. But
I see this post made by Archie on Wowhead saying that recent guilds defeating Galliwix not being added to the Hall of Fame. Do you know what's going on with that?
dude, no one knows. So after Temerity killed it, so it's clearly Temerity's fault. Yeah, Calabazi is at fault here.
Why
Just
is,
shout out
why is he
Calabazi.
flexing in this picture?
Giga Chad.
Yeah, so due to Calabazi's fault, after Temerity killed it, the Hall of Fame has started filling up, and any guilds after Temerity have not gotten their Hall of Fame guild achievement. So nobody knows why. Blizzard hasn't said anything yet. But the assumption, and this is completely unfounded, is that Blizzard is putting in a check to make sure you've killed the entire tier to get Hall of Fame, but like there's no evidence of that. So do you guys actually think it's an issue?
So Hall of Fame is a Blizzard thing, right? Like that's like an achievement. That's
Yes.
something that's in Blizzard. So I was under the impression before that like certain websites were not validating the kill because they said like, Warcraft logs or Raid.io or something. But now Blizzard is basically saying that your Hall of Fame doesn't count if you skipped. Is that right?
We don't know that for sure because like there
Yeah,
are
okay,
guilds
well,
that
actually,
will-
sorry, let me correct. So it was working, and now all of a sudden it stopped working.
So are they
right?
not getting the achievement in game, or are they not being added to the website? Because there's two different things.
both.
right?
Both.
Okay.
Guilds that have done 8 out of 8, that have done the tier completely normally, that are now 8 of 8, did not get the achievement and are not on the website.
Okay.
I mean, to me, it doesn't make any sense why you should get Hall of Fame if you skipped bosses, unless that's like literally part of the raid design.
That's ridiculous. Like you definitely should
Yeah.
not get Hall of Fame if you've skipped bosses. And I mean, we loosely talked about this last week about how boosting is really stupid in this game, and I would
To be fair,
I would not be sad if it went away.
We loosely talked about this at the beginning of the patch, right? When we saw that the way that the skip was going to work, yes, we said that guilds would do this. I mean, we were kind of memeing, but at the same time, like, why wouldn't they? Of course they would. Like, why? Everyone cares about guild rank.
This is dumb. This should not be allowed. I think it's also a byproduct of Galliwix being easier than the bosses that came before it.
Sure, it is, but it also isn't, right? So, like, let's say Galliwix is a 400 pull boss, and then Muggsy and one armed are 100 pull bosses, right? Well, you still want to skip them, right? Like, if you're starting one armed, why you still want to skip one armed and Muggsy? Why wouldn't you?
How many pulls have they taken on Galliwix so far?
100 and something.
That's
70?
gonna be me soon.
How many pulls did you take on Galliwix, Squishy?
I don't remember either.
Like
Oh,
90?
he remembers. He's lying.
Wildcraft log.
He's not proud of it. All right, well, I'll distract with random things right now. So,
This is dumb.
pro tip. So, all right, this is Growl's tip of the week for abusing raid lockouts. So, there's a skip that goes to One Armed Bandit and Muggsy, but when you do that, it like clears the bosses up to them, right? So you can't do them. But what you can actually do is clear the bosses in your lockout, then invite somebody that has the skip to go to One Armed or Muggsy. They can join your raid group, open up the skip with the NPC to let you go to One Armed or Muggsy, but then leave the raid in the party before they get locked to your instance, and then they can open up the skip for you without even like you can't do it with Galliwix, but you can give somebody a Muggsy or One Armed skipped without even losing your lockout. You can literally just walk into their raid lockout, open it, and then leave.
Yep. 59, by the way.
Okay. So you're saying
We did very
that's
well.
good.
you're saying they're
That's
at
very well.
you're saying they're at 170.
That is somebody pinged me with earlier. 170 at 25.9%.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think that this is the thing, right? Like whenever you have a guild that's not, I guess, I would describe them as ready to prog Galliwix. I mean, this is kind of the sequences that you end up having. Like, if a guild did this last year with Ansarek, you would have gotten value out of skipping Silken Court in Nexus Princess Kaiveza. But, like, I don't think they're killing like they're probably not killing Ansarek, right? Like, just
like maybe it's not
skill-wise.
really as tempting, yeah.
Yeah, but with Galliwix being easy, this guild is still going to take 200 pulls to kill it.
Yeah. And realistically, the last phase isn't hard, but they haven't got to the last, through the last phase yet.
Yeah.
There's still like an intermission. There's the tank bomb coordination. Like, it's not hard for any guild that has gotten there naturally.
This is really stupid that this can be a thing. Like I
agree.
I don't blame Fat Shark Yes for doing this. Just like the for them selling it,
No, not at all.
I don't blame them. I think it's dumb that I do think it's dumb that it's allowed. Like, it shouldn't be allowed, but like playing within the rules of the game, it's allowed. So yeah, I don't blame them for doing this. I do think it's really stupid that if they can snipe Hall of Fame from somebody, it's really unlikely that they can actually snipe Hall of Fame from a guild. But being able to get it, like, that's like a reward that you get for having this progression, and there's prestige to it. And buying a lockout is like circumventing the sanctity of which there's sanctity in World of Warcraft achievements. Like, what are you, some corny person? But like, it's kind of it's just really weird that it's even a thing.
It defeats the purpose of the achievement.
Exactly,
right?
It does.
Yeah.
And it's I think it's very unlikely for it to actually cause anybody to not get into Hall of Fame. So how Hall of Fame actually works is like, after 200 guilds kill the boss, for that during that reset, if you also kill the boss during that reset, you get Hall of Fame. It's not just hard locked to 200 guilds. It's hard locked to that.
Clear.
It's hard locked to that reset. So 220, 200 to 250 guilds tend to get it per tier.
To be clear, sometimes they just randomly add an extra week on it too, like last tier, where they're just like, "We're doing another week, guys. You have another week to get it," and they're just like,
Which is
okay,
fine. Like, it's fine. Like, I don't care, but at the same point, it's like, so these people buying this lockout probably isn't going to do anything. But it's also the same. It's like the same concept as the guy that we saw last week in the pod that was 675 item level. He's not really harming anybody, but it's really stupid that it's a thing.
I didn't expect them to do anything about it this tier, because like everything's going on. If they're actually like going in and being like, we're gonna verify all these Hall of Fames or change Hall of Fame now to make sure that 8 of 8 is a requirement, that's weird. I understand why, but it's weird. I expected them to do something next tier though.
I'm down for them to do the right thing. Like,
yeah, it's not that big of an ask because it's only the top 100 guilds or whatever. So
yeah,
or 200.
but
yeah,
as of recording right now, Temerity is still the last guild on there at 119. So
because they see
shout out
it's because they
Kalamazoo.
got to send this big picture. Kalamazoo looking yoked.
Oh, by the way, go back to that picture real quick. That is such a fucking funny picture. So if you're only listening to audio, it's basically a thumbnail picture of him flexing. But here's the thing: is he's not looking directly at the camera. He's looking like off to his other monitor to see how it looks, and it so it reminds you of every YouTuber who does these thumbnails. What they do is they do these photo shoots for themselves where they just like, put the camera on and then make all these weird faces and poses to use on thumbnails. And so he literally took the picture from him looking at his other monitor to see how the pose looks, and then he used it in the thumbnail,
Dude,
which is absolutely hilarious.
He had to check to make sure he looked good. He goes,
yeah, he's like, damn, I look good in this.
That is elite. I didn't think about that. Yeah. Oh gosh. But yeah, the buying the lockout stuff, it's weird. Very strange situation. Gosh. All right. For cool stuff we've seen this week, I think we had this submitted as a question a few weeks ago. Talking about what would an end of dungeon like a leaderboard look like, and somebody actually ended up going out of their way and created an in-game leaderboard out of a details plugin. And so this creates a scoreboard at the very end of a run, and it's kind of interesting. It kind of gives you some tools, and if you give me a second, I can actually pull it up so you can show you what it looks like. So basically what will end up happening, once you like loot the end of dungeon chest, you're actually able to get a scoreboard, and it has like interrupts, it has damage done, it has healing done, has damage taken as well. So you can kind of at a glance like see all these like cool features of the dungeon itself, and I think it's actually like a pretty sweet sweet plugin just in general.
All right.
Looks like this.
Well, well, you can show it real quick.
Oh,
Yeah.
this is the okay. I've seen this in the stream.
Yeah. And it also has like a timeline at the bottom showing like where deaths occurred, and you can like hover over the death and see what the most recent 3 sources of damage taken were. You also see things like CC's cast, dispels, interrupts, HPS, stuff like that. You can also see kicks and overlapped kicks and missed kicks, so you can see if a kick is whiffed or if it's overlapped with another player. So kind of cool. And how much IO people got from the dungeon.
As I have another really important details hack too. You know, this is something that's very, very important with Arcane Mage. So I was doing some Dark Flame cleps, and I was kind of getting owned by, you know, other people in the group doing more damage than me. So I really like went to the lab and tried to figure out why I was doing like less damage. And they're just padding. Like they're just hitting mobs that I don't care about, and I don't want to see that. So let's just make sure I have the right thing. So if you open up your details options, you can go to, I think it's options and then spell list and then NPC list.
Yes.
And then you can just type in the name of any mob there and check a box, and then it'll hide those mobs from details. So, you know, for instance, like the Beelits and Cinderbrew or like the little oozes or anything, just remove all those out of your details so that you're showing the true damage of what's going on to your
I do that, especially with like the laborers on the first boss and like all these other like random civilians. The civilians in Rookery, to make sure I can't get mind controlled by them and want to pad on them. I got to do the right thing. I can't be dotting. I can't be padding.
Realistically, like as a half beam, like, you know, those things don't affect your timer at all, and you may actually be like doing a disservice by killing them.
Yep.
Like if you're sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, do you remember the blobs in the Shrine of the Storm?
Oh yeah.
The Sub Rogue season, holy shit! People wanted to pat on those so bad. You're like, no, the Sub Rogues, these are mine for boss damage.
Yep.
Well, no, that's the thing is like you can actively grief your team's damage, especially with some of the classes people are playing. Like Arcane Mage, for example, like you want to hit 4 targets with your orb whenever you send it to get max charges, and if you have 4 targets, it's so good for you. And so, like, if you ever are fighting 5 mobs and one of the mobs needs to die, if you're like, well, my rotation says on 5 targets, I get to press this, like you're trolling, because not only are you just killing these mobs that are already going to die anyway to the Arcane Mage, but also you're subtracting their damage, which I guess if you're trying to look good on the meats, you should do that. So maybe never mind. Maybe that you should Starfall.
Yeah, it's like a Vade said, perception is reality, so you should just do big damn. Just focus on yourself.
Press spell reflect.
All right. From Growl this week, we got this cool thing called a Cooldown Manager Customizer. What is this?
That's squishy.
Oh, this is Squishies.
Yes, this is mine.
Okay. What is this?
This is one of 2. So next, by the time we're watching this, the patch releases with Blizzard's version.
Oh, we didn't even talk about that.
I forgot about that. Yep.
Yeah, so we're gonna talk about it now. The Cooldown Manager sucks, unfortunately to say, because it tracks every single buff that your class uses, and there is no option to disable them. So if you really wanted to know all your class buffs, this is a great tool for you. It's the Cooldown Manager is like half baked. It's not really usable in its current situation. Like the fact that it's default, some people will probably use it, but it needs work. This add-on makes it work more. So you're downloading an add-on and using the default to replace an add-on.
I mean, downloading an add-on for my default.
Yeah, I hate that. But
so this allows you to remove some of those spells. So if you really don't want to know like the Heart Strike buff is up for Blood Decay, you can remove it here. That's all this add-on is.
I've heard the same thing, actually. We've had some discussions because I have my UI available through the Wago thing, and we've had discussions about, do I remove the middle weak auras for this? And the conclusion is basically no. Like, unfortunately, this system, while it's very exciting that they're adding an in-game cooldown tracker thing, it's just not nearly customizable enough. Like, one of the big things when you talk about UI is not even so much like putting stuff on your screen, but also taking stuff off your screen, right? Not having any sort of extraneous information, and having procs or buffs or things that you don't want to see is going to be really, really, really bad for you. Like, it's just going to be total visual clutter, I think.
See, there are things that I think, this is something that I think should be in the default UI, but it needs to be actually well done to what people want out of it.
Same with the personal resource display. Yeah.
Yes. Like, you should be able to track what you want to see, not what Blizzard thinks you want to see, because unfortunately, every person is different.
Yeah.
You know, there are some buffs which people are like, that's too much for me to track. And it might be a very slight DPS loss for you to not track it, but it might help them to not have to track that many things, and that's totally okay. Or you might want to track more things that you can ignore, because a lot of people do that anyways.
Wait a second.
That's also an option. Like, it needs to be more customizable than what it currently is. That being said, I do like that they're doing this because like we had, the base UI, which is a pretty big success. Like I think that one has come a long way. I think if this is the start, that's good, but it needs to be improved upon. And I would love for them to keep adding more. Like we've seen in like Fellowship, for example, they have a baseline DBM. I would love to see a baseline DBM. Then we don't need to update our add-on every day, every time we raid, every time we go into a dungeon. Like that'd be cool. I would love to see baseline nameplates that are not crap.
Awful, yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately. So like I think this is a great like thing that they're working towards, and I want to see more.
Yeah, they've been dragging their feet and doing it very slowly. Like the action bars they improved. Just some of the other like small UI stuff. But yeah, they have a ways to go. I think weak auras and DBM are sort of like, I think a bare bones version of that in the game would be good. And then I also think, yeah, improved nameplates with like, I don't know, better visibility, ways to change what buffs you can see or not see. Like,
Yeah.
I don't really think those things are that crazy. And I think even for people playing the game at a really basic level, you would need to see those things.
Yeah.
It's funny because they've talked multiple times about the arms race between add-ons and weak core developers essentially in rating and Mythic Plus, and how they're like constrained because they have to assume everybody's using these add-ons and stuff. And there's no way for them to remove weak auras or add-ons without removing the weak auras or sorry, to design without those things without removing the add-ons first. But removing add-ons has so much of a catastrophic effect on everyone right now because there's no replacement for them that they can't do it. I wonder if they're like slowly working towards that vision in a way.
Oh
Of
yeah, I
like,
mean, I think adding like the best way they can remove DBM or weak auras is to create a good in-game alternative, right? Like if they had a better version of, or not a better, but just like a serviceable version of Bigwigs that was in game, dude, I would delete that shit instantly. Like why? You know
yeah,
what I mean? Like no one wants to download all these add-ons. You just do it because you feel obligated to, whether it's for your own performance or your guild or whatever. And yeah, I mean, having good notifications for bosses, and then like, hey, if you want to have some giant air horns or use exactly what Echo Mirez uses or whatever, yeah, you can download a different add-on. But for most people, I think they'll be happy. Like that's the first thing everybody thinks of whenever you hear a UI improvement is, oh, do I get to delete this now? Like that's everyone wants to delete their add-ons. No one wants these.
I would love to delete the like tierly weak aura assignment pack where you
Yeah,
have to go in and be like, oh, did everybody update their add-on this week?
I
Like,
hate
oh,
that, dude.
we're
I
we're
really
on
hate this
version 20
meta.
now. Oh, Growl, you're on version 18. Please update before we pull the boss. Oh, where do I download this again? Oh, give me a second, guys. It's lagging my PC. It's just like, oh my god, please get me out.
Dude, it's the worst. It's got to be so bad for new players too, because like I had a guy come in my UI channel or asking about it. He's like asking about my raid weak auras, and it's like, imagine you're a new player who doesn't fully understand everything. Like you're pugging in heroic raid, and you're like, what? You're gonna download the liquid weak aura pack, and then the liquid anchors, and the liquid this, and then it's like, what? It's like assigning you to do shit. Like, oh, go mid left, and it's like no one, like no one else in the raid is even knowing like what's going on, and no one like. I don't know. It's such a terrible user experience to
Dude,
people, but like people don't know better, right? They see, oh,
yeah.
every streamer that I see uses the liquid weak auras. I have to download this. Like, oh, tells me to go. Like, I wonder if it just like assigns them to literally everything because there's no, I mean, maybe it knows or I don't know, but I really hate this
Do you remember?
weak aura pack every season.
Do you remember Lords of Dread in Sepulchre?
Oh yeah, the cheater weak aura.
The like
Yep.
instead of communicating, it was just a known thing that for pugs, you just downloaded a weak aura, and if you were like part of that thing, you would click vote or whatever above the person you thought was the traitor. Imagine a new player coming to that fight. You're just like sitting there, like, what do I do?
Yeah, like how am I even supposed to do this? And then like everybody just has like triangle above their head, and there's all these numbers being spammed in chat, and people are pinging you, and it's just like that's what people's genuine experience are when you don't know about add-ons and weak auras and you step foot
Okay,
into raid.
quick tangent. Back to Gallywix. There was not a single weak aura that was needed on that boss, and I loved it for that reason. Everything was
Gallywix banger fight.
was possible to do without a weak aura. It gave you enough time to deal with the mechanics. Like everything felt fair, and it gave you enough time to like mentally figure out the mechanics. And I was so happy, and that fight was so fun. To
What
not
a
do a fight
great
with weak
boss.
auras.
Imagine being such a fucking clown that you're just going to say that this is some terrible boss. Imagine being completely outraged by a boss that you didn't even fight. And then meanwhile, the entire player base fights it. And it's like, wow, this is one of the greatest bosses. And on top of that, it wasn't even really that bad of a boss for the top guilds because it was totally blind progged and you actually got to learn the phases as they came out. Like, wow,
Yeah.
what a great boss Gallywix was. Good job, Blizzard. You should be proud.
I think that Squish and I were talking about it before you joined. The issue that Gallywix had is that I think it was just like a hair too easy. Like I think that like Sarkareth difficulty should probably be the floor for like an end boss in terms of like tension that you get on the fight, especially for like a last phase DPS check, and being able to like limp over the finish line with like 19 people is a little bit weird. But I think it's way closer to well balanced than Ansarek was. Like this is ridiculous.
Yeah, but I just had to throw that in there just because coming off of Galleyprog, it was a really fun boss for me. I didn't have to fiddle with weak auras. I didn't have to like do it. Like it never felt like, oh, I felt like that was cheap. You know, like if you got like 4 web blades and you had to go soak and do this in this specific area like Ansarek was before all those nerfs, like that felt unfair sometimes. And like I could go on about other fights in the raid feeling unfair, like Rick Reaver barrels, or you know, like getting a left-right spawn on One Arm Bandit, or Muggsy Mines being bugged. Like Gallywix just felt like a really good, solid boss.
And to be fair, I'm memeing a little bit. Like, obviously, there are some problems. Like, I think, like, if you're one of the people that get the very, very early bombs and you end up just, like, getting pushed into the corner alone by yourself and you just, like, stand there for the entire fight and you're, like, not really moving. Like, if you're one of those mages or whatever, like, yeah, it's not really super exciting for everybody. But, I mean, at the same time, like, not every boss is going to be.
Yep.
All right, so Growl, what if I told you that I could save you a minute and a half in Priory of the Sacred Flame?
Oh shit. I forgot that I heard there is a hack that people are using in. All right.
Okay, one of the most commonly misunderstood things is the first boss, Captain Dalecry in Priory of the Sacred Flame. Him and his mini bosses, they don't share health necessarily, but they redirect damage to one another. So first off, this is a 2-target encounter. A lot of people actually have a misunderstanding that this is a 2-target encounter. It's actually a 2-target fight. You should be looking at 2-target cleave. What's also has not been known until this week, publicly at least, and I think that there were some teams during the MDI time trials that were doing this, looking at their timers, but is that the mini bosses that are off to the side, such as Thanner Dual Maul and Chainmail, they also have the HP share. Now, whenever you go and kill the other mini bosses, so the Spell Reflect mini boss or the Thunderclap guy, it summons Chainmail and Dual Maul off to the side. Then they have less HP because they are no longer attached to the boss. And then Emberlins, who is attached to the boss, has this bonus HP modifier, which is why it doesn't die during the fight. But these other mobs that still have the HP share attached to Dalecry, they still have it at unlimited range, which means if you don't kill them and you proceed to kill the boss and you're doing you're basically just like 2-target cleaving off of them, both Chainmail and Thanner Dual Maul will die to basically just AoEing them down, allowing you to get 50 count per mini boss for free without having to do that, which will end up saving you about a minute and a half, I would say 45 seconds ish per mini boss that you skip this way. Absolutely banana strategy.
So how exactly? So you kill the first mini boss that's at the bottom,
so,
right?
Look at this. Okay, you see, Zorthus is like targeting Thanner. So their count is at 382, and so they kill, like you said, the Thunderclap guy and the Spell Reflect guy and get them spawned, get the mini bosses spawned, but they never pull them. Right? They walk to like a static location, and so they never get pulled. And so now they're just like standing here. You see, Thanner Dual Maul here is sitting here, we're at 382 count, and eventually he just dies and we go up to 432 count, right? We gain 50 count for it.
Yeah. So apparently
you basically kill the first mini boss, then the second. So when some people don't understand when you kill those 2 mini bosses, the Reflect guy and the guy in the first room,
yeah,
a mini boss runs to that location.
Yes.
So you kill the first guy, then Chainmail or whatever will run to that spot. You avoid him, you don't pull him, then you just go over to the Reflect mini boss. You kill that one, then the next mini boss spawns and runs at you. You avoid that guy, and then you just make your way to the boss, and then those two mini bosses just end up dying.
Yeah.
Got it.
It's crazy that everybody was killing these mini bosses and no one knew that you could just skip them.
They're good count. Like, they're good. There's a reason you didn't skip. The reason you didn't skip them is because you didn't want to skip them. They're 50 count apiece.
Shut up, 50 count, not bubbles.
Exactly.
Yep.
They're good count. Like, you want to pull them. It makes sense, right? But then it's like, so you never really tried, which it makes sense that it's like that. Now, what I suspect is about to happen here is Blizzard's going to be like, oh, and then give the no longer have the damage tie-in be attached to the mini bosses that are spawned and like standing there. I think that buff is about to get removed off of them.
My thought was the second they deal damage, they pull, which would be the other way to do it.
Oh,
considering they just stand there while their health just ticks down is very funny.
I think you're supposed to be allowed to skip them.
Okay, that's fair.
I think you're supposed to be allowed to skip them. Also, you could just give it a range, like you could, give it like a 15-yard range or 20-yard range or something like that.
The funny thing is, I was talking to Tettles, like, is there going to be a way where you can pull the third mini boss far enough away and benefit from that as well in any way?
No.
I don't think there is, unless there's some kind of bug with the final mini boss, but
because
it's definitely cool tech.
You have to fight the boss with a mini boss. That's just like part of the encounter. So it's not like you could go and fight the fire circle guy and then like have all three mini bosses out at the same time or something weird like that.
I mean, how do you know? Surely there's some way.
Well,
that you can maybe find a way to.
I killed 3 of them on the PTR. They didn't fucking do anything. But like, maybe there's some like insano way, maybe.
As a side note, I guess you don't get the count. But if you pull double mini boss into the boss, does that mean you triple cleave the boss?
Boss gets bonus HP, I think. I think it does count for you triple cleaving the boss, but there's like a bonus HP modifier, I think, on them.
I thought that was only on the ads, but I could be wrong on that.
I think Carassus was messing around with it. I don't think. I remember the conclusion was like, "There's nothing here to know." I remember that was like the end result, but I don't know exactly why.
Do you know if Chainmail needs to be in line of sight for the damage transfer to work?
It does not. There's no range on it either.
Interesting. That's a good cook, though. Shout out to Zorthus for showing that out, because
I think MDI teams were doing it just looking at their timers in this place. Like,
well, they might need to practice something else now.
Doing some 20s. They were like 2.5 minutes under. Yeah, 2:45 under on a 20. That seems outrageous. But with that context, yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
All right, you guys ready to move on to Q&A?
Let's do it.
All right, if you want to submit your Q&A, you can tweet at @thebenchwow, DM them on Twitter, or alternatively, you can just DM me on Discord. Might not answer your DM on Discord. I'm just like really bad about remembering that. But I do check the Twitter DMs like a couple hours before the pod. So that's always the best place of submitting your question. Okay, this week's question we have from Garlic Bucket. Because I'm not a new player to WoW in general, but I'm actually new to engaging in Mythic Plus at all. With Season 1 of The War Within being my first ever season, and now continuing the trend going on in Season 2, for reference, I didn't set foot in a plus 10 key until after the 11.0.7 patch in Season 1, despite playing the entire expansion up to that point. Going into Season 2, I've progressed to the point of all-time 10s much faster, and I'm left wondering how to approach moving further beyond just from a pacing perspective. For example, do I really have any business jumping up a key level when there's still so many things to improve upon in every single dungeon at the key levels I've already timed? Or does slower progression to higher key levels just cause stunting of improvement overall? There's probably a good chance that I'm overthinking this whole thing, particularly when I'm exclusively doing pug keys. It just seemed like it would be better to spare the other people from my own potential LFG terrorism as much as possible when I should have gotten way more reps in the dungeon beforehand. I'm just going to be, before anybody else says anything, I'm just going to say you making a mistake in a dungeon, you have every right to make a mistake in a dungeon just as much as anybody else that's in that dungeon. Like, just because you don't think that you're qualified for that key doesn't mean that you're not necessarily qualified for that key. And everybody's going to be making mistakes. Even, people who should be more qualified than you, they're going to still make mistakes as well. So I don't think that you should look at it from that perspective. Growl, what do you think about this post just in general?
I mean, I agree. I think for tanks and healers especially, I think it's really important that you go into as high as key level as possible all the time to get the best reps in. Like doing easy content as a tank or a healer will, I think, stunt your growth a little bit because you'll sort of like, your ability to play those classes has to do with playing under pressure. Whereas DPS, not only can you like still get reps in, but also it's harder to find groups as a DPS that are like higher keys or score for you or whatever. So I could see maybe wanting to spam lower keys. I don't know. What do you think, Squishy?
I mean, I think I agree with what Tettles said. Like, I think I've said this before in the podcast. The only way to improve, or the fastest way to improve, is through mistakes. When you make a mistake, it is the easiest way to be like, I made a mistake. I know what not to do next time. And so, yes, sometimes like you're going to have people that are really toxic when you make a mistake, but I mean, those people probably aren't ones that you should be trying your best to ignore, because the person that is you're caring about the most is you here. You want to make the best improvement, and you need to play in order to improve. And that's hard to overcome at times. But especially if you can find people that you enjoy playing with or that are really nice, if you find a key that is like learning key or something like that, that is probably going to be your best bet.
Yeah, I think just game a lot. Just like play and play and play. Like M+, it comes down to just knowledge, both of your class and of the dungeon and of reps. Like, just try and actively think about what you can be doing better in each key, especially in terms of like sequencing your cooldowns and cadence. Like, okay, if I use my big cooldown on this pull, is it up for the second pull? Is it up for the third pull? Do I need it up for the second pull? Like, can I send this cooldown here? Will it be up here? Like when you use your important buttons can be very, very important to your success. And the more you play, the more you just get to test like, well, that didn't work. That didn't work. Okay, this works.
I think also, I mean, if you want, you can also go back and listen to a couple episodes ago whenever we had a Vade on talking about like how to actually get good at Mythic Plus. I think that in general, though, from a pacing perspective, you absolutely do have business jumping into a key level where you feel like you're not qualified, but you are qualified, right? Like everybody probably has that same level of skill. Like if you've timed all the dungeons on a 10, you're still you're qualified to move on to an 11. You're going to make mistakes. Everybody's going to make mistakes, and sometimes you deplete keys. Not every key is meant to be timed. There's like in most of my 10s that I've been doing, I was timing most of my dungeons on a +10 on my 0 to hero, but then I hit this point when like 12s where I'm timing probably, I would say around 50 to maybe like 60% of my dungeons. And there are just some dungeons that just weren't meant to be timed. It just wasn't in the cards.
Oh, yeah.
Like, and that's fine. Like there's just some dungeons that you literally just, it was never getting timed and has nothing to do with anything that you did correct or incorrectly. There was something that was just a higher power that was involved here that you were depleting the key.
Yeah, I think in general, one of the biggest problems if you asked WoW players is actually not being able to get into groups that you're qualified for already. Like having enough score and having enough item level to be able to do a key, but no one will invite you anyway. So I feel like very rarely is it the reverse problem of like, you're just always getting invited to all these keys where you just suck ass and you know what I mean? Like usually it's very, very hard to get invited. And when people ask me like, oh, what IO do I need to do X keys, or what eye level do I need to be to do Y keys? It's like the answer is always, if you can get invited, you're good enough for that key.
I mean, here's the thing too. Like this is during my 0 to hero series. I mean, it's not any surprise here. I am only listing my key as well because me on this terrible 660 item level elemental shaman that I don't know how to play that well. The only way I'm gonna get into a group is by listing my own key, right? Like that's the thing too. And so just like getting an invite is like already a big step in the right direction. But yeah, I think you're overthinking it a little bit. Just I think what Growl said is great advice. Just keep playing and play a lot. And if you're having fun, just keep playing.
All right. People like are toxic or blame you or are mean in keys, they're clowns anyway. Like you don't really need to listen to those people.
If you heard the very beginning of the episode, the people who are toxic, it does happen. And people in general have a tendency to let the toxicity stick out in their mind more than the neutrality or the positive sentiments, which is why I can't read comment sections on YouTube because it just like blows my mind. Like there'll be 10 positive comments and 1 negative comment, and I'll just like overthink the negative comment. And it's the same thing with WoW, right? Where I'll encounter 50 people who don't say anything, and then there's some jackass in my key that's just like a toxic asshole, kind of like Growl had earlier today with that demon hunter. You just like can't let that person like rattle you. People will sometimes just be assholes, but most people won't type in your dungeon. All right. Anything else?
I don't know. Another banger.
All right.
How long are we going for?
2
An
hours.
hour
I was a little bit late. I made these guys wait around, so sorry for that.
An hour 59, 4, 5, 6.
Okay, like
7,
we'll get a gap for another like minute to hit the 2 hour mark, I think.
9, 10, 11.
Titles could just count.
Yeah. Tettles, how's your day been?
Not too bad. I've been streaming every single day, trying to do my 0 to Hero series on my Shaman. It's gonna.
I feel like that's been good for your viewership. No, I noticed
Yes.
like people like watching it. Yeah,
Dude. Okay, I'm glad. Dude, that was kind of the goal, right? Because I think that streaming vanilla keys, World of Warcraft has this thing where it's the entertainment factor of World of Warcraft is mostly just in like the just chatting. And I think that just streaming yourself doing vanilla high keys is some of the least, like, it's so boring to watch sometimes. And so I was just like, whenever I started doing the 0 to Hero, I just went with it with the lens of, I'm not trying to prove a point to anybody. I'm not being like, oh yeah, I'm just better than you or anything like that. It's literally just for entertainment. But it's been good for my viewership because of it, I think.
Have you guys ever watched the game Super Mario Maker?
I have.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So I'm a big Mario Maker fan, and if you guys may be familiar with the idea of super expert, or basically like levels that are really hard that are just completely random, made by whoever.
Yes.
And so honestly, one of the best content that like gets views in that game is super expert. And those are the shittiest, stupidest levels ever, right? Like there'll be these crazy intricate levels made by these like brilliant level designers, and you just don't want to watch it. But do you want to watch like someone try and play this complete pile of shit that some 8-year-old made? Like, yes.
Yeah.
You know, and I think it's sort of the same way with WoW, is that like it's so formulaic what happens in a high key. Like, you know, obviously if you're there for that moment when you like time that world first key or you get that huge IO, it's exciting. But the whole process up to that is so boring, and it's so like, you know what's going to happen. But what's fun about a pug is like, you have no idea what's going to happen when you turn into Tettles in a 13. Like, it could be a smooth key. It could be, you know, you're playing with some random guy who just flames you. Like, someone could rage quit. Like, someone could have the most ridiculous build ever. Like, what's fun about watching it is the unexpected. Like, anything could happen at any moment, and it keeps your attention. And I related a lot to watching Mario Maker Super Expert in that regard.
It helps that I'm terrible at
Jangbi has that going for him as well.
It's like, this is good content because I'm just so bad.
I watch Tettles, like I tune into streams while working and just leave them on mute and stuff like that. I look at Tettles stream, he's starting a Motherload 12. I finish like a message or an email or something like that. I look back, he's zoning out of the key. I'm like, what the fuck happened?
Yep.
Don't worry about me. It's like, it happens, and sometimes it's my fault too. Sometimes I forget to invite a healer. Sometimes I decide to run it down. It happens to everybody. God. But I'm almost at the end of my journey. But that's it.
Do you like have any plans for putting it together on YouTube or anything, or
so
how you want to do it?
I think I'm gonna go with the supercut approach.
So just to clarify, are you only gonna do a supercut and no individual episodes?
No individual episodes. I think I'm gonna go against your advice, and I think I'm gonna go for the one long video. I'm just gonna try it, and if it sucks next season, I'll just do it as the multi-part video.
Well, to be fair, it won't suck, right? Like, people will enjoy it. You know what I mean? But I just think
it sucks viewership wise, then I think I could get better viewership doing it long form. Is what I mean.
Well, also those sorts of things can be slow burners too, right? Like,
yeah.
You know, you're not always in the mood to watch a long like YouTube video, but you know, sometimes you are, and then you watch 3 hours of it. And
yeah, I'm gonna place it into chapters. That way people can like watch one chapter at a time if they're like trying to watch it as well, and like in pieces. Yeah, I watched, I don't know if you watch any like TF2 stuff, but I was recently consuming a video. It's called like 100 hours of spy or 100 hours of sniper. I'm just like trying to get myself in the mood to like be able to figure out like how I want to write the script for this video. So once I'm done, dude, I gotta go into like
script writer mode. You're scripting or like commentating the whole thing.
I don't know. Okay, no, let's talk about the whole thing. Like,
okay,
like we're gonna be chronicling the journey of my character, not like scripting the whole thing.
Makes sense.
It's gonna be like, yeah, I mean, it's good. I'm breaking up to like the intro, I watched the beginning of the Jangbi Zero to Hero series, like for like thinking about the intro and stuff like that. I'm like, okay, this is kind of how I'm looking at
Oh
this
yeah,
intro.
that one's a lot. Yeah, that was so hard.
That's a good.
I mean, I'm sure like a lot of people are like, why did you only make 3 episodes and you gave up? But I'm sure as someone who does that sort of content, you know exactly what happened. When I'm like,
yeah,
I'm just like, dude, this is fucking.
I
so
worry that I would
much.
give up, like, but I'm gonna do it as like one really long video. So like, I'm looking at the intro, so I'm like gonna be like setting it up as like this is the introduction to the series. I'm setting up the rules. Some people are gonna be like, yeah. Some people are gonna call it cheated because I did it on stream. Ultimately, if some people, I told people not to join my group. If they join my group, you know it is what it is. It's just for entertainment, anyways. It's not I'm not going for the most hardcore challenge, anyways. Whatever. It's like set the rules, right? For what the challenge is, and then it's like the leveling process, and then it's like, then I'll have like, I wrote one. It's gonna be like a part of a chapter. It's called the Jangbi encounter. Whenever I encountered your mage, like
that happened. Wait, what?
I haven't played with anybody I knew except for Growl's mage, which I invited to the group. I was like, yeah, this is it.
The chat determined that playing with my mage was acceptable as I'm basically just an LFG demon.
Yeah, but yeah, I'm going to go for one really long video. Long term, I think it's probably going to do a little bit better than a bunch of short videos. That's what I've at least seen with the everything you need to know about Mythic Plus video that I do at the very beginning of every single season. That one really long video does better than broken up into multiple parts. Going into editor mode and actually scripting out and recording and writing the entire thing is going to take me a while, though. And I need to just, it's going to be a long grind. I hired somebody to edit it, too,
takes
though.
A while.
I hired somebody to edit it, too. Realistically, I could edit it myself, but I know I would give up if I had to edit it myself.
Oh, yeah, that's good, for sure.
I had to hire somebody, which, I do all my own editing normally, but I needed to pay somebody for it.
No, that'll definitely help you out a lot, then.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, let's we do need to talk about that crazy e-girl drama, but we'll save that for the Patreon. So
okay,
this is still being recorded. Yeah, see everybody later.
Goodbye.
Yeah, T10 with the bench. Bye-bye.